Hello and welcome to Fresh Face Comics, the comic book podcast where a lifelong comic book reader guides his friend through the world of comics for the first time. My name is Joey Morgan, the aforementioned lifelong reader. With me as always is Jacob Blicklighter, the aforementioned newbie.
Insert joke about being blind and having Catholic guilt here.
God damn it. You know, part of me, I wasn't expecting the blind joke. I mean, I guess I was kind of partially, but I was thinking it was either going to be that, or you're going to make some kind of like Twilight Zone reference about how we were entering a world where Frank Miller is good. So I don't know.
That
anyway,
too, but also,
but we are doing exactly that because today, we hit the halfway point in the first ever Marvel block on Fresh Face Comics. We're talking about Daredevil by Frank Miller and Klaus Janson, Volume 1. This is the first 16 goddamn issues here. It's a lot.
Dear listener, you should know that because of delays in getting the book and then life getting busy, I had to binge the last 5 issues of this in a very short amount of time before recording.
Yeah. I mean, did you like it? I guess opening of our conversation.
Yeah, opening our conversation. Oh, I liked it. This is okay. So we've already done a bonus episode on the first season of the Netflix show, and you can see the influence. Oh, you can see the influence.
Oh yeah,
especially near the end.
Yep.
I will say, this is probably one of the weirdest runs to jump into because Miller starts out just as an artist.
And
I know we got some questions about this and some thoughts about this from our viewers, and we'll address that. We'll address that later. But I think it's really interesting to sort of jump in. It's like, oh, this is just a monthly comic drawn by Frank Miller, starting kind of in the middle of a different author's run completely.
Not even there. It starts even in a completely different writer's, completely different series. Not even Daredevil.
Completely different series
at the start here.
With the first, with 2 issues of an arc that does not, this isn't like a complaint that the arc doesn't get concluded.
Yeah, because it's just trying to compile the times that Frank Miller drew Daredevil at the start there.
And that Klaus Janson was inking Frank Miller's Daredevil largely.
But with those opening Spider-Man issues, like, you don't see how that story necessarily begins, nor do you really see how it ends.
No,
it's just
you don't.
Frank Miller drawing Daredevil for 2 issues, and then you move into the actual Daredevil title.
But even then, the actual Daredevil title is starting in the middle of some stuff.
More so even like the tail end of that run.
What I find interesting is, Stan Lee, I think it was Stan Lee who famously said something like, oh, every issue could be someone's first comic issue. And this is kind of testing it. And
I mean, for as much as the early issues of this collection, sort of like dip in and out of different plot lines, like, I think it's all still pretty accessible. Like, you pick up pretty easily, I think.
I think there are a couple of things. I think Roger McKenzie, who is the main writer on on the bulk of this, before he and Miller start to actually co-plot and then Miller takes over the plot, I think McKenzie could have done a little better in establishing some of the supporting cast just a little bit better. But they will let you know in every single issue how Matt Murdock got his powers and what he can do now. not only through an opening narration, but sometimes like literally through his inner like thought bubbles. Like every single issue, it happens at least once. Every single issue. But also there is like a gaggle of brunettes that are like there. And I only remember one of them extensively.
And what's your point, Jacob?
Is that Look, I wasn't expecting a lot of the sexism in this book to not come from Frank Miller.
Right? It's
like,
bizarre.
Why? And like that isn't to say Miller is perfect. There's like there's a trope that Miller uses later on oddly enough, in the first issue that he fully writes on his own, that is a little iffy. But at least it's with a fairly strong female character. But yeah, like a lot of my the problematic takes, I can't necessarily attribute to Miller.
No, you can't. For once.
Oh God, saying that is so weird, though, right? Like,
yeah, we really have slipped into a parallel dimension. But yeah.
Also, like, my God, like somehow Frank Miller's art, instead of improving over time, like since the start of his career in the late 70s, feels like that was almost his peak in terms of art, and then like 70s and 80s. He starts to slip slightly a little bit, but then the 90s he slips, and by the early 2000s he's in full Frank Miller, weird proportions, no sense of scale mode.
And then we have, artistically creative variant covers these days that, if you don't like, you're not accepting of other people's art styles.
It's literally just the style he uses for Sin City and The Dark Knight Strikes Again.
Yeah.
Like, that's all he draws. And people like to say it's because they color it wrong, and I'm like, no.
There are bigger problems than the colors.
Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, shall we get into some Twitter questions?
Yes.
Let's actually start on some Discord questions.
Yes, because we have a few.
First comes from our friend Andrew. You guys know Andrew.
He was just on the podcast.
He was just on the podcast. He was on the last 2 episodes. Go check those out if you haven't already. Andrew says, "Am I one of the cool kids if I say one of my 2 connections to Daredevil is that I've seen the 2003 movie? To redeem myself, my other sources of Daredevil was Daredevil Yellow, so I hope that balances it out." That depends, Andrew. Do you like Daredevil 2003?
Knowing him, he might.
He probably does.
I've never seen it, so I can't pass judgment.
Yeah.
But also, knowing Andrew and Andrew's takes. Oh boy.
That said, though, Daredevil Yellow is quality from cover to cover. So, sure, I guess it balances it out. Our next Discord question, I never know if we should read out usernames for.
We may as well. I think this username is fine because it's basically that person's public name.
True. Okay. So Cameron Thomas 116 from Discord server that we share with him says, "I get the trades trying to be comprehensive, but after reading the omnibus, I think the real worthwhile stuff here is issue 168 onwards. Currently reading Born Again and its peak. Born Again is peak. I agree. But also I think there is a lot of stuff to enjoy from the Roger McKenzie issues before
I think
Miller takes over completely.
I will say, so if I don't love labeling scores on the books in the podcast itself, because it's even when ranking stuff, despite my brain loving to rank things and what I like and what I dislike, it's not always fair to rank something so broad as a full medium of comics. But I'd argue the McKenzie stuff is a solid 7 out of 10.
I'd agree.
It's good. It does throw you into the deep end in some aspects where I'm you could have explained yourself better, but you're also in the middle of writing a book, so I'm not gonna hold that against you. But then the Miller stuff just hits hard. The last 5 issues of this book are the 5 Frank Miller writes and draws. And it is surprisingly basically a 5-issue story arc.
With a ton of ambition. A
ton of ambition.
It's insane. Yeah. It's really good.
It feels like Miller has something to say, really is I think I've fallen in love with this character and I'd like to explore them.
Yeah.
And
one thing I do think is lacking actually in these collections that we're reading from today, though, is that, I don't know, they have introductions on all of them, and I think just all of them are kind of lacking. They're just we had a good time making this, and yeah, that's about it.
I think part of that is also because I don't think Frank Miller is all that great at hyping himself up.
True, but also I feel you read that little interview section from the beginning of the Dark Knight Returns 30th anniversary edition that you would buy nowadays. And I don't know, that Miller does a decent job there of understanding why people love his work. But here it's just I don't know. He's I guess I did okay. All right. It's weird. It's really weird. Anyway, another sort of question comes from our friend Kian, at Kian the Quark, says, does Jacob want to kill you for making him read more Frank Miller? I don't know, Jacob, do you?
I will make an exception for these 2 episodes. And potentially the 3 other Daredevil episodes that will be coming in the future. I think the 3, right? It's just 3 more books after these 2 in the run, in like the full.
Yeah. So it's it depends on the main run is only 3 volumes, but then you of course have Born Again, and you have Man Without Fear, which is which is Miller's take on the Daredevil early days. Which I'm sure we'll cover at some point because they're all kind of famous. Yeah, really. Yeah. So.
Anyway,
Keen has another question that says, isn't it weird that Daredevil is a blind guy, but Batman is a rich guy who does stunts? Yes, it's very weird. And also,
it's not, but bats aren't actually blind.
Well, fuck you, whatever. Anything to further my theory of the Batman Daredevil connection, which exists everywhere throughout comic book media, not even just comics, but films as well. It's really
because
bizarre.
Of Ben Affleck and Chip Zdarsky?
Ben Affleck, Chip Zdarsky, Frank Miller. I know there's at least one other example that I usually use, but I can't think of it right now. Of course, there's Mazzucchelli, who does Born Again, and he does Year One as well. And Janson, of course, on Dark Knight Returns. Fuck, what else? I know there's one more. I think it's a film one.
Is it?
Colin Farrell. That's right. He plays Bullseye in the 2003 movie, and then Penguin in the Batman. So, yeah. So there's that. Anyway. Next question. I had to close the tab for some reason. There we go. Next question. Our friend Jamie at Jamie_season7. What the fuck? A probably good Frank Miller comic? Yes, it's surprisingly more likely.
Surprisingly, I think it's because Miller's young and full of righteous indignation.
Oh yeah. That's one of those things also that he talks about in that introduction to Dark Knight Returns, where he's just like, I was just so fucking angry when I wrote that, and that's probably why it's good. And
he was also angry when he was writing Strikes Again, but the anger was
very different kind of anger. Very different anger. Anyway, our next question comes from Pinogram at Pinogram. Says, looks at which issues are being reviewed, puts away TMNT jokes. I don't quite get that. Anyway, favorite costume for our sad Catholic friend, Jacob?
I like the all red one, but also red is my favorite color. So
I love the Zdarsky era black and red one. I love that. I don't know if you've ever seen that one.
I have not.
I'll send you a picture of it when we're done. It's so good.
I don't know. I'm gonna say I love the way Miller draws Daredevil.
Yeah.
There's just something utterly fantastic about that. But also the way, I believe it's when the issues. I'm just really checking the colorist real quick. Yeah, it's when Glynis Wayne, who does a lot of the coloring on this book.
Yeah.
Not all of it, but when she's on colors, they pop really well.
Yeah, definitely. And then our last sort of question comes from our good friend English Giraffe at English_Giraffe. Says, Frank Miller on Daredevil, lots of greater than signs, better than Frank Miller on Batman. And yeah, hard agree. Do you have any thoughts on that?
So I have currently read, with this 4 Frank Miller books. Honestly, I prefer.
Goddamn, you've read 4 Frank Miller books.
Yeah. Soon to be 5, Joey. Soon to be 5.
What's really funny though? If we're just talking individual issues, I think with this volume alone, you've read about the same amount of Frank Miller Daredevil as you have Frank Miller Batman.
Was it 7, 8, 9, 10? Yeah.
Weird. Anyway, sorry, what were you gonna say though? I cut you off.
I think even though this is this is starts off a bit slow, I think overall I prefer this to both Dark Knight Returns and Year One.
The first volume alone, I struggle a bit with comparing it to Returns. But for me at least, volume 2 that we're doing next time is when the Miller Daredevil run really hits its stride. And yeah, he produces some really great stuff in there that I think is far superior to anything Batman he's done. But yeah, I guess that does that. That does Twitter questions. I guess we're about to get into spoilers. As always, I'll leave Amazon links to the books that we're covering on this episode and the book that we're covering next time down in the description below. You can check that out. Of course, as always, our link trees will be down there if you want to follow us on social medias and all that. And if you are sticking around for spoilers, thanks. That means a lot. It's most of our episodes usually. If you're not, just know that next time we're covering volume 2 of this, so no big surprises there.
No big surprise for me. Not yet. But I will also say, if you're leaving now, I mean, we may as well plug it, or I may as well plug it for Joey because I don't think he's going to. If you've been enjoying Joey's some of Joey's other content, Joey has recently started a Patreon that will, if get enough, if Joey gets enough patrons,
Patreon's there. Me and my brother for our Star Trek things that we do. That's there. It's only for the Star Trek stuff for now, but there are milestones that you can see in the pin post on there for future expansion to the larger channel. It's a long ways off, but it's it's a thing that we're working towards, and it means a lot. If you want to go check that out, if you feel like supporting me and the things that I do. That means a lot. So thanks for that. And thank you, Jacob, for forcing me to talk about that right now. Anyway, is it spoiler time? So.
I believe it's time to move into spoilers with
spoiler.
Peter Parker. Spectacular Spider-Man number 27
is. You know what's weird though? This is probably the Peter Parker with the most depth that you've read so far.
I mean, early Peter has depth. It's just more annoying depth than anything. It's just more raw.
This is your first comic book Mary Jane content.
It is. She is fabulous.
Yeah.
She is great.
And some Betty. You get some Betty in here too.
You get some Betty. I have more notes on these 2 issues on Spider-Man himself than I did on Daredevil.
That's fair. Daredevil's more of a background player. This is Peter Parker, the Spectacular Spider-Man, number 27. This is where Frank Miller's Daredevil career begins, supposedly.
It's a
little weird.
It's 1979. Bill Mantlo is writing this book.
Yes.
And Spider-Man is blind.
Yes.
And that is certainly a trope.
You get thrown right into the deep end here, with Peter Parker being the most beautifully soap opera Marvel character out there. Peter Parker has been blinded. He's Spider-Man. He's swinging through the city with Daredevil, who Spider-Man does not know that he is also blind. So we're gonna play around with that a lot, and by that I mean just pretty much comment on the exact same scenario again and again and again.
And again. It's I don't love the, oh my god, woe is me, I'm blind. And I'm like, okay, Matt, can you tell Spider-Man that you are also blind?
See, but he has to protect his secret identity, Jacob. How will he protect his secret identity if he tells fellow superhero Spider-Man that he is also blind?
There is more than one blind person in the Marvel universe.
Yeah,
I am sure.
But Peter Parker is also friends with Matt Murdock, so
oh, right, that would be
so it's a little more difficult for him. Swinging through the city, having fun, whatever. These guys, Spider-Man just is absolute klutz blind, so Daredevil saves him on multiple occasions.
And Peter Parker has the most dramatic scream of, I'm no good to anyone now, not to myself, not to anyone. I'm a joke, a sick, pitiful, pathetic joke.
I love his whole you just don't get it, man. I'm blind. I can't be a superhero anymore.
So I love how Matt's like, oh my god, you annoying bitch. Fine, I will call the ophthalmologist that I happen to know. Doctor.
I love also this one really dramatic bit where Spider-Man's like, no, the Marauder said the effects of his optoblast were permanent. I am finished. Don't you understand that? The Amazing Spider-Man is finished. I just I love it. It's so good.
So
it's lovely.
We surprisingly get a full page of here's Daredevil's origins.
Yep. Yeah, first take on that. How did you take that as a first time comic book Daredevil reader?
I mean, so I knew the origin. I'd seen the first season of the show.
Mm-hmm.
They went over the origin way back in the Amazing Spider-Man number
15, was it?
15 or 16,
somewhere around there. Yeah.
Look, those issues kind of blur together.
Oh yeah, they do.
Yeah. I love the way that Miller draws it. Like, specifically this middle like panel with the panels within panels. The way Miller draws the senses, and the montage. The way Miller
right down to I love that last panel there too, with Matt there with the two versions of Daredevil there balanced on his cane. I love that. I think that's so good.
And there's this great use of shadow. Like,
yeah.
Miller doesn't draw like he used to.
How fucking blown away were you by just not just good Frank Miller art, but like downright great Frank Miller art?
Well, so as you know, I have some expectations that I write down going into each book. One of them was good Frank Miller arc ? Also, one of them was no supervillains. That was a bit presumptuous of me.
I don't know what would make you say that. At all.
It was the Netflix show. It was the Netflix show.
There you go. Well, I mean, if it helps / unfortunately doesn't help at all, Frank Miller is pretty much the reason that Daredevil's like rogues gallery is so limited, because Frank Miller kept using like the same like 5 supervillains over and over again. And so those are the only ones that people only ever adapt, and hence they also only ever write them that way these days. So it's a shame, but also, I mean, one can see why, because Miller's damn good at his job here. But more on that later.
So Matt calls this ophthalmologist that he knows called Dr. Orlock, which is a reference to Nosferatu, I think.
Is it?
Yeah. Well, the vampire Nosferatu is called Count Orlock.
Yeah, okay.
I don't know why. I don't get it. Maybe is he also secretly like the masked villain that we see in these issues? Maybe? I don't know.
Fuck the rest of this Marvel block. We're gonna read all of Peter Parker the Spectacular Spider-Man for the rest of it. We're gonna find out what's up with this guy.
Yeah.
Anyway. Meanwhile, Mary Jane and Betty Brant. How about that?
Doing again some very nice soap opera-y. Mary Jane has been proposed to by Peter Parker, and she turned him down because she's not ready for marriage.
Yep, and Betty seems to have also had something going on with Peter at the time. So her and Mary Jane just decided to talk it out, which is nice, actually. It's certainly no Stan Lee soap opera there, but I mean it's nice.
It's nice.
Yeah.
Also, you can tell the female characterization has evolved since 1963.
Oh, most definitely. But yeah. Anyway,
Peter Parker's landlady.
Yeah,
Mrs. Muggins.
Yeah, she comes across in
his apartment. Destruction, mindless carnage.
Yes, with a message on the wall that says "The dead walk, Parker." And
there's this villain, a cadaverous villain called Carrion.
And he kind of like runs off into the night, and then we come back to Daredevil. So Matt and Peter go to see this doctor, Dr. Orlock. Peter not wearing his mask, but a bandana pretty much made out of webbing. Which is a weird way to obscure your face. Surely, I don't know. I feel like it would almost be more effective to just pull your mask up to cover your hair. Because I feel like that's more distinguished than I don't know. It's weird. I feel like I'd be able to recognize Peter if I knew Peter Parker just based off this disguise.
It's not like Peter Parker doesn't have a very distinctive design or anything.
Yeah, anyway. So we inspect Peter, and he freaks out again. He jumps up from the table and crashes into the wall and this desk. It's so fucking funny. I love it.
After being told, like, yeah, no, you need to, like, one, you need a rest, and two, you'll make a full recovery. It's gonna be fine, Peter, or Spider-Man. But here's the thing: a villain called the Marauder has a mob behind him, and he's planning something big, and I have to be a superhero.
Yeah. So while he's resting, the Marauder is getting ready to strike, and it's just like this is our drama. And you know what? We're making fun of it, but it's pretty standard, but it works. I don't hate it.
We're clearly in the middle of somebody else's story, right?
Yeah, yeah. I feel like I've walked into a room I'm not supposed to be in. Yeah, this is
especially since this book is what's often. I mean, there's a reason we're covering this as our first Daredevil coverage. It's the book that everyone's like, this is where you start reading Daredevil. This is the iconic run, and it starts with Spider-Man.
Yeah. But it's where Miller's Daredevil career begins, so we got to follow it.
I will say one of the things that then really, really stood out to me in terms of the art was, so they're going to find Marauder because Peter Parker has one of his spider tracers on him, and there's just this single panel of Daredevil's acrobatics, with the faded Matt Murdock's.
Oh yeah.
And it's a trick. This is a trick that gets pulled so many times by Miller, and every time it's
always so good. Yeah, like the poses alone, like it seems so fucking believable. Like, oh, I love it. There's a page in particular, you probably know what I'm talking about, in Matt's apartment later. It's one of my favorite pages in the whole collection. Anyway, but yeah, he's so good with that. Meanwhile, Daredevil is using his radar sense to try to find where the Marauder is hiding, and
he also tells Peter to shut the fuck up, grow up. We're in this together. You're gonna be fine.
Yeah. And so he takes Spider-Man with him. Meanwhile, in a penthouse on 47th Street, they say. I don't know why I'm yawning. Fuck. It's not even late. Anyway, fuck. We catch up with the Marauder, and Daredevil arrives and begins to fight off the Marauder's men. And Spider-Man doesn't help at all until he's attacked by this giant metal bird-looking thing.
Bird rocket.
And he's sent out of a window, and he says, "Oh boy!" and he falls out, and that's where the issue ends. And that's our cliffhanger. That's great.
It's a good cliffhanger.
Yeah.
Good cliffhanger.
Next up, Peter Parker, the Spectacular Spider-Man, number 28. Where we hard pivot from the Marauder, because the cover isn't even advertising the Marauder. It's about that carrion guy that we saw from a single page. It's weird. Anyway, but yeah. Oh fuck! Seriously, why am I yawning? Fuck. Anyway,
I'm the one here who's slightly sick, Joey, not you.
Well, fuck you, man. So Spider-Man,
So this rocket is a bomb.
Yeah, he latches on to the bomb, and it begins to take him throughout the city as Daredevil fights the Marauder's men. And once again, Miller does his lovely, shadows of Daredevil jumping all around the room, and it's so good. Actually, also, I love that. I'm assuming your book is numbered the same way that mine is. I don't know if it's like a newer edition, because I know I have an older one. On page 27 of the collection, those 5 panels at the top there.
Yes.
It's so fucking good. Daredevil's face at the middle, sort of like using his radar sense, like spanning out through as he's like fighting off the Marauder's men. It's so good. You can really see like why they got him on the actual Daredevil book so soon after this. It's because it's so good. Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah, you also have the Marauder thinking, that Daredevil must have infrared lenses so he can see in the dark.
I've shown you that that variant cover to the one Zdarsky Daredevil issue, right? Where it's them drawing Daredevil, and he's like, we need a reference for this. We'll use, local attorney Matt Murdock to learn how to draw Daredevil. It's like, oh hey, he kind of looks like him. It's literally that. But taken seriously. Anyway, So yeah, Spider-Man is being like taken all around the city as he's latched onto the bird missile thing.
He physically rips off the metal of the bomb, and it explodes. Meanwhile, the Marauder's like, "Holy shit, my bomb controls have gone dead," and that distracts him enough to be punched completely out.
I feel like we've only read Spider-Man appearances where he's just absolute ass at his job.
I mean, isn't that part of the charm of Spider-Man?
Well, yeah, but like, it just this one feels especially inept for some reason. Like,
I mean, especially since like this is Peter Parker, the Spectacular Spider-Man, as seen on TV.
Yeah, as we have to advertise on the covers because that amazing cartoon was out at the time. Anyway. Was it the cartoon or was it the live action one at this point?
I don't know. Well, this is 79, so...
Ooh, I'm currently blanking on which came out when.
Anyway. It might have been a cartoon at that point?
Might have been. I don't know. Anyway. But yeah, so as the bomb explodes, Daredevil finishes fighting the Marauder, and... although, wait, no. Does the bomb... Okay, it's shown exploding, and then... It's still intact as it lands on the city, but doesn't explode.
Yes.
It's weird. Anyway, so Spider-Man is then chased down by the police. It almost doesn't feel like 16 years of Spider-Man history have passed since we last read the character. Anyway, Daredevil comes to Spider-Man's rescue, explains the situation to the police, I guess, and... takes Peter away. Meanwhile, Mary Jane is looking through Peter's apartment, which is still trashed.
Detective Jimmy D'Angelo and later one Flash Thompson.
Yes,
because they are roommates, apparently.
Yes.
Yeah.
See, that's what makes it feel like 16 years of Spider-Man history have passed. But yeah, Peter makes his way to the apartment, and as his eyesight's back now, right?
It's slowly getting back. Yeah.
Yeah. So, that's right. He puts on sunglasses, so he goes back to his apartment, and and talks
steals
to the
some
cops.
Clothes from the window. Asks if it's not another surprise disco party. You can tell
those things that were happening all the time in the late 70s. But yeah, he talks to the police and everything, and he's reunited with Mary Jane, who greets him very affectionately.
Yes, it's almost like they're meant for each other.
Yeah, crazy.
Until someone decides to make a deal with the devil.
But yeah, Peter then finds out that also his friend Hector, who I forgot to mention at all up to this point, Hector's unconscious. He's not dead, but he's unconscious. There's a message written next to him that says "Ashes to ashes, Parker." And then Peter is attacked by the Carrion, or by Carrion. It's just Carrion, isn't it?
It's Carrion. Here's the thing, right? So like the idea is that this is a villain who knows who Spider-Man is. Because like Peter thinks, well, it could be Harry, but he's been normal since our last battle, which so I imagine this was like right around the time Harry Osborn was the second Green Goblin.
Probably. I haven't read that far into Spider-Man, to be honest. So, I'm sorry.
This is at least before the 90s, where there were 5 Spider-Man books going at once.
That is true.
They all interconnected.
Yep. But yeah. Let's see. But yeah. Peter's attacked by Carrion, and as this fight takes place in front of one Holly Gillis. Holy Gillis. Wait.
Oh yeah, there's only one.
There's only one L. There's only one L there.
My brain I think my brain was adding a second L.
I think mine was as well. But yeah, she witnesses this fight going on, and the Carrion vows vengeance on Peter, and that's where the issue ends. And we're never gonna read the follow up to that, probably.
No. Well, I mean. Maybe.
What if we do though someday? What if this podcast goes on so long, eventually we find ourselves back at Peter Parker, the Spectacular Spider-Man,
yeah.
number 29?
I mean, they just I think they recently collected the early Peter Parker, the
spacular. He's spackling the walls.
The spectacular Spider-Man in an Omni. So who knows? Who knows? But yeah, so now we actually get to go to Daredevil number
actual Daredevil time with
158.
I love the cover of 158 so much. Spoilers, it's probably the picture I'm using for the thumbnail of the podcast this time around. It's so good. Anyway, but yeah, we go into this. This is a grave mistake. And Foggy is here, surrounded by women, and Black Widow is here. So crazy.
I think we should probably make my history with Marvel characters known to the audience.
Let's talk about Black Widow.
Yeah. So I've seen a decent chunk of the MCU. Scarlett Johansson as Black Widow is, I'm gonna be honest, not my favorite character. Partially because,
weirdly enough, like, no, sorry, you go. I didn't mean to cut you off. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Partially because as a character, she, for a lot of it, there's a lot of the films that I've seen at least, she's first a female character written by Joss Whedon. And that's either going to be...
Well, before that, first written by Jon Favreau, who actually is pretty good for the most part, sort of. I don't know. Iron Man 2 isn't her best outing.
I also don't remember much about Iron Man 2.
I don't blame you for that.
I have seen Iron Man 2 once, whereas I think I've at least seen The Avengers twice. I saw Age of Ultron, I think, once in theaters, and that's it. Because, surprisingly, I don't rewatch a lot of Marvel movies. I don't rewatch.
Welcome to this podcast, my friend. Yes, where we will be doing that a lot, I assume.
However, we are not doing a film today. But yeah, so for me, sorry, I didn't know what to expect.
Did I tell you ahead of time if Black Widow was in this?
You did. You said. Okay. You said. I believe your words were, "Get ready for a surprising amount of Black Widow content."
Yeah. And that doesn't end after the first volume. So, yeah, it's weird. But also for me, like Black Widow as a character, you mentioned Scarlett Johansson playing her, and it's just like, she's probably one of the few things I actually really like about the Black Widow character, because I don't know. I don't think she's that interesting to begin with. Brubaker does some cool things with her in his Captain America run. But overall, I just don't think she's that interesting a character in the first place, and I think making her interesting is kind of hard. So here we have her as actually a pretty major character in Daredevil.
And I think the problem is she is so clearly a character of the 70s. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't know if they've really properly modernized her.
And
I think she's a character who could be due for some modernization. I don't know if she could, from a little bit of the notes, if she could like lead her own solo book, which is always kind of a shame because she's prominent. Like, she's a strong character. Like, our introduction to her is she is facing down a villain while Foggy Nelson is knocked out and the three brunettes, because
also as she is in an action pose next to yet another grand tradition of early of the first few decades of Marvel Comics, Stan Lee's alliteration in the credits. We have Ramblin' Roger McKenzie, Kinky Klaus Janson, which is a choice. Amiable Al Milgrom, confidently predict newcomer lanky Frank Miller. Is such an artist. There were choices made in that one.
There were some choices.
Yep.
I think the one that threw me for a loop was Kinky.
Klaus Janson. Yeah. Not long after, followed by Lanky, which
Lanky.
I don't know.
They probably wanted to say fucking Frank Miller.
Fucking Frank Miller.
For the alliteration. For the alliteration, but they're like, we can't print an actual F because people are going to think of other words that we do not want to publish and be approved to still be approved by the Comics Code Authority.
Yeah. But anyway, guess who fucking Black Widow is fighting here? I'm pretty sure. Are these the same ones from X-Men that we just read about in Volume 1? These creatures? The cat person looks familiar. I'm pretty sure these are the same ones.
They might be. Yeah. So
if nothing else, they look just like them.
You know how I wasn't expecting supervillains?
Uh-huh. Here's Black Widow fighing a cat
The
person.
Unholy Three, as they are called.
Yes.
There's a lot of dialogue. Like, Roger McKenzie. You're nearing Stern levels of dialogue, sir.
Oh, yeah.
And Stern levels of dialogue are difficult to deal with. Not quite Lee levels, but definitely Stern levels. But yeah, so they want to capture Matt Murdock because they know that Matt Murdock works with one Daredevil.
Yes.
Which, okay, this line of thinking for a small-time lawyer in New York City sounds kind of ridiculous. Because, like, I can imagine Murdoch's name being put through the press. But I can imagine people saying, like, have we ever seen Matt Murdock and Daredevil in the same room together?
True. But also, at least when, when Daredevil was at this point in his publication history, he was, I guess, the perfect disguise was that you're a blind man and nobody would suspect that you're a superhero, which
he's gonna suspect the poor blind man.
Which is Stan Lee's, big take on that, I guess.
He's trying. Yeah.
Also, just looking it up, these are the same kind of characters from X-Men that we read about. Yep.
That explains a lot.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, I will say one of the big problems here is that we don't really learn, and like, you have these three brunettes. One of them is called Heather. She's probably the best characterized because she's the recurring character.
Yep, we actually get some solid stuff with Heather later on.
Yeah. I don't think the other two are named.
I think they have names.
Oh, I'm sure they have names. If it is, they're named like once, and they are not important.
Yeah. But yeah, as the Unholy Three begin to make their escape, and they find they get Matt Murdock. They begin to escape with him as
they're working for a character called the Death Stalker.
Yes, which is a name. They take Matt. They begin to run off into the night there, and Matt begins to talk to them as they take him away. They take him to their boss. At the graveyard here, where this guy, the Death Stalker, has a grave with Matthew Murdock's name on it. And he's dug a hole for Matt Murdock because he hates Matt Murdock.
Burn in hell. Yep. He looks like the Phantom of the Opera. Like,
he does. Or I guess if we're sticking in the realm of comics, the Phantom Stranger.
That's fair, but I was also getting massive over the top, maybe because of the whole graveyard and overly dramatic, overly complicated plan. I was getting Phantom of the Opera vibes.
Fair. Point being, a phantom of some kind.
Yes. Turns out he's actually a robot.
Yep.
Originally known as the Exterminator. So this is a character from over a decade prior. From Daredevil number 41, as the helpful editor's note tells us.
Marvel comics are fucking weird, man.
Yeah. I was expecting like street level gang violence, and
nope.
It took me a bit to adjust.
This was the late 70s, Jacob. He explains his backstory from when he first appeared, and now we're here. And now he zaps, and does he actually kill the Unholy Three, or are they just unconscious? Okay, yeah, they're dead. Them. Okay, they're all dead.
He murdered them in cold blood.
Yep. And so in this time that Matt breaks free from being tied to a tombstone, and he changes into his Daredevil costume. This guy also very much knows that Matt is Daredevil.
Yes.
so it's very casual for some reason. Fight begins between the two. At one point, Matt actually does fall into the grave, and he's like, yes, I have you exactly where I want you. And so he picks up the shovel. Instead of starting to like shovel dirt on Daredevil, he just throws the shovel at Daredevil.
Yeah,
a little weird.
Yeah. I mean, I think the idea is he's going to try to decapitate Matt Murdock with a shovel.
However, because that would work.
I mean, here's the thing. It would, but not if you just like throw it like that. Like, you need a significant amount of leverage to decapitate someone with a shovel. You're not going to get that.
Imagine, yeah.
Don't check in my parents' backyard.
God damn it, Jacob. You know what? I don't doubt that. Anyway, so we get another one of Miller's favorites, Daredevil jumping out of the grave. It's great.
And then introducing to yet another favorite, Daredevil throwing one of his sticks, and it doing some great acrobatics, turning hitting then a street lamp that's been illuminating the graveyard, so they're stuck in the dark. So Miller gets to play around with shadows, which is very, very fun. Mm-hmm. A statue gets decapitated, and the Deathstalker, who can become a ghost thingy, gets trapped inside a grave physically.
Yeah, it's pretty grim actually. Like surprisingly dark. This guy, like, as he's phasing through a grave, gets stopped, and when he becomes solid again, he is phased through the grave. He's like halfway through it, and it kills him, and it's actually horrifying. Yeah, I just anyway. Yeah. So
we end with Daredevil killing a villain.
Yeah. And saying, "May God have mercy on his soul." And then later,
epilogue. With, again, 3 of our brunettes. It's like, Matt's exhausted because of crimes. He thinks he hears someone coming. He thinks it's Black Widow. It's not. It is someone who also wants to jump the bones of one Matthew. Matthew Murdock fucks.
Yeah, I mean, like if nothing else, I mean, they could be as ableist as they want at the time. Like, at least they acknowledge that, like, women are attracted heavily to Matthew Murdock. If nothing else, he's got that going for him.
I think it's the Catholic guilt that does it.
Exactly. Yeah, always works.
I think it might have been Chib Zdarsky on Twitter that I saw some sort of an interaction involving Matt Murdock fucks, but he cries before, during, and after.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's right. Yeah. Anyway, moving now into Daredevil 159, Marked for Death. This is that. We open on some bad guys watching a clip show of Daredevil fighting other bad guys, and are like, "Hey, he is marked for murder," which is different from the cover title. Anyway, marked for murder. And they're like, "Hey, can you do it?" And he's like, "Anything is possible for a price." And
these are a bunch of assassins.
Yep.
And it's this mysterious figure who will eventually be revealed. Turns out he looks kind of like Hillman. It's like, yes, I hate Daredevil very much. It's like, we'll do it for $500,000.
Seems like a lot of people hate Daredevil.
Yeah. So the next morning, the following afternoon, actually, yes. Matt Murdock is going into court and is accosted by reporters because this is Matthew Murdock, who was allegedly the victim of a bizarre kidnapping late last night that led to the deaths of 3 men in a small uptown cemetery.
Yes, men, not human animal hybrids.
That may or may not also be robots.
Yeah. One of them was definitely a robot.
Yes.
So that statement isn't accurate in the slightest. Anyway, watching on from a distance is one Ben Urich, who I'm sure was at least fun to see here.
Fun to see. I forgot. I didn't realize he was white in the comics.
Yep, that's it's one of those things. Yeah, and
it's a thing.
Both versions are great. Nothing's
great. But he's like, there's something more to Matt Murdock. That's what I'm here for.
Yeah. And so yeah, Matt is in court. I forget what this scene is even accomplishing, to be honest.
Well, it's because the guy on the stand seeing Murdoch. So our assassins were hired by one Mr. Slaughter.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that is his legal name.
Yeah, I hope so. It better be. But yeah, they're watching Matt as he then like leaves the courthouse.
Because they need to extend the trial date. One thing that I was slightly disappointed in: not enough courtroom scenes.
Yeah, I just sincerely doubt that any writer at Marvel Comics at the time just knew anything about actually being a lawyer, so they just kept him out of the courtroom as much as possible. So
watch 12 Angry Men and go from there.
That's a story about a jury. This is a very different character.
12 Angry Men and To Kill a Mockingbird. You're golden. You're golden.
Sure.
That is
look. I get recommending great film to people. I don't think it actually helps though in this case. Anyway, but yeah. So these assassins are watching Matt as he leaves the courthouse with Foggy. And
Foggy gets accosted by this giant bald man with a knife, and Matt with a gun. But
yep,
giant bald man with a knife.
Yep.
Yeah, so Mr. Slaughter wants to see him midnight tonight, Pier 42.
Yes. It's that classic thing where it's just like, yes, I know Matt Murdock and Daredevil know each other, so I'm going to get Matt Murdock to lead me to Daredevil. It's great.
And Matt Slaughter, Eric Slaughter of the Pennsylvania Slaughters.
But yeah, so they leave Foggy and Matt alone then, and Matt disappears.
There's a lot of Matt disappears. Yeah. Matt does a vanishing trick.
Again, the Daredevil Batman connection. But yeah, he becomes Daredevil, begins trying to hunt down his potential assailants. He follows them eventually to a shipyard dock where on this boat these assassins are still watching out for Daredevil. Daredevil arrives, fight breaks out between them, and it's actually a really cool fight sequence because then
one of them has a pirate's cutlass.
Yes, as they should. Matt is eventually thrown overboard into the water. This guy continues to fight him in the water. It's a really fun sequence. I really enjoy that. But yeah, Matt makes his way back onto the ship. Fight continues.
We keep fighting.
Also Turk Barrett is here, which is great.
Turk,
who was also in the Daredevil Netflix show.
And is also such a slimy little bastard who keeps showing up.
I love Turk. I don't love the lisp that they decide to phonetically spell out in the comic before Miller takes over. It's a weird thing. I don't know. Yeah, but otherwise, Turk's here. It's great. Matt finishes fighting off these guys.
It's so hard because there's a lot of these that are like, it's extended action. And the extended, I don't think there's, for a lot of this, we're going to be able to really put into words necessarily why the action works so well.
It's the fact that, believe it or not, at one time, Frank Miller was a damn good artist. We're seeing that right here. And so these action heavy issues really work because Miller's actually making it dynamic. He's doing cool poses. And Janson is also crushing the inks. I love the way Janson inks just the Daredevil suit alone, the way he shrouds it in blacks at times. It's so good.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
This is a winning team. You can see why they teamed up again on Dark Knight Returns.
Mm-hmm. And then not on Dark Knight Strikes Again.
Yeah. Honestly, though I might argue that maybe the art would have worked a little better if Janson was also inking it, but it may not have been. That may not.
What if you just took a marker and just covered every single page in complete blackness?
Yes,
that's how you ink the Dark Knight Strikes Again.
There's a moment. I'll say there's this moment. There's this. It's sort of it's a 6-panel sequence where a gun goes off right in Matt's ear. So he's in agony.
Yeah. I love that bit. Yeah.
It is beautiful. beautiful use of colors. Like the background becomes half black and then fully black. With the so agony, good. And then when we have one person after the carnage is over waiting on the dock, and then you just have this shadow of Daredevil, larger than life figure.
And even then, when he's intimidating this guy, like you still see that, like what Matt is seeing, or what he's not seeing, is just these vague silhouettes around him because he's still recovering from the gunshot that went off next to him. He's eventually able to make his way through, but you watch like Matt actually struggle as a character there in that moment. Like just because he has heightened senses doesn't make him completely immune. Like all it took was that one gunshot to almost completely incapacitate him, but he still got the job done. And you watched him go through that. It's really good. But yeah, it's I don't know, it's great stuff. We also have an epilogue at the end of the issue that
because people were actually filming Matt and they got away, and it turns out that Slaughter himself was being used by one Bullseye.
Yes. Now, did you know anything about Bullseye going into this?
I did not.
That's fun. Nice.
There's
also a thing at the end of this issue showing how Daredevil's Billy Club works. So that's kind of nice.
Yes.
But yeah, sorry.
There are a couple of those little things. I was going to say, here's where we get one of sort of the more problematic elements, aka Bullseye first wants to break Daredevil's woman to get to him. That woman being Black Widow. It's not the worst, but it is kind of annoying. And whose fault is it for once? Not Frank Miller.
It's not Frank Miller. Yeah. I do love that on the cover, though. He is holding up Black Widow by her neck with the cord of a hairdryer.
Yeah.
I don't know, it's just fun stuff. But yeah, I guess getting into Daredevil number 160. So you didn't know anything about Daredevil, about Bullseye.
I did not.
So that's fun. Well, don't worry, Jacob. The only thing you need to know about him is that he's Bullseye, and in his hands, anything is a deadly weapon, as they will say at least 6 times in this issue alone.
A lot.
Yeah, it's a lot.
I started to think like, wait, did I already read this page?
Yeah, it's a bit excessive, but yeah, Bullseye is going after Black Widow here.
We start with an epilogue.
Yeah, classic. Yeah, he goes after Black Widow. Beats her in a fight by actually knocking down like a chandelier on her head, basically. And then, taking her for himself, he leaves a picture of her with a target on it stabbed into her wall so that Daredevil will know how to find her, or at least know who took her, I guess, because there's a bullseye on it.
Because it's the bullseye symbol.
Yeah. We then go over to, I think, one of Miller's most effective pages, this graveyard page.
Yes.
So good.
So we get a bit more of Heather Glenn. Mm-hmm. And we get, that her father's dead. Matt is kind of there for her. And they're kind of, like we said, Matt Murdock fucks.
As always.
He has like 4 or 5 love interests throughout just this volume. Which is...
And you haven't even watched Daredevil Season 2.
I have not.
That is when the show properly adapts Matt Murdock fucks. But we see Matt there consoling her because her father is dead. Heather also knows that Matt is Daredevil already, which is nice. Nice to just
have at least
ignore that for once. Yeah, it's good stuff.
Yeah. Also, like, Foggy and the 2 other brunettes are looking on, and it's like, no, Matt needs to be alone right now.
Oh my god, wait, I literally laughed out loud when I read this again. Foggy's like, I think he'd rather be alone. And then the next panel is a silhouetted Matt Murdock with a silhouette of Daredevil as his shadow, and is sitting in his room. He's like, with a thought bubble that says, I hate being alone.
Well, on the next panel, outside, a happy couple who would never make a deal with the devil.
Never. Yeah, I forgot that was even there.
I'm like, oh, it's Peter and MJ being a happy couple. Yeah, that must be nice.
Yeah. It's so I don't know. I laugh at that thought bubble so much though, because it's just like Miller drew a really
comedy.
Miller drew a really effective panel there, and you know, like you could fill in the "I hate being alone" thought bubble yourself, but no, they need to tell you "I hate being alone." Anyway, but yeah, Matt then despairs, of course, because he's sad Catholic. He puts on his Daredevil.
It's even funnier because sometimes it gets so blamed lonely that I needed somebody to talk to. Somebody who can understand what I'm going through. Someone like Natasha. I haven't seen her in several days. I guess she's been tied up.
So he then
goes to Natasha's apartment.
Goes to see Natasha. Finds out that she's been taken. He does once again. Miller crushes the whole radar sense drawing. It's awesome. He's able to see. He's able to feel that
he's able to
there.
feel the ink and on the printed image of Natasha and the bullseye, and all he can say is Natasha in a
Natasha
fantastic fucking panel. Like,
yeah,
amazing.
It's so weird just praising Miller so much on art specifically. You could praise Miller's writing sometimes, but
sometimes
but his art, man, oh man, it's so good here. But yeah, Matt goes to see Ben Urich,
the Daily Bugle, which, okay, I don't know why I wasn't expecting the Daily Bugle to be a thing, because
yeah. Well, especially like when your main exposure to Daredevil is the Netflix show. It was made at a time when the MCU didn't have Spider-Man, so
yeah.
You could really use the Daily Bugle. But of course, Ben Urich works at the Daily Bugle with a poster right behind him of J. Jonah Jameson that says, "Hard work never hurt anybody." It's so good. Yeah, I just love that. But yeah, he goes to see Ben.
Turns out Bullseye was a model prisoner.
Mm-hmm.
And had therapy appointments. And then until 4 days ago, it turns out he murdered his therapist with a microphone cord.
Mm-hmm. Because in his hands, anything is a deadly weapon. Yeah. But yeah, so he kills his therapist. He
kills a cop.
He threatens his way out of there. Gets out, and now Daredevil's on the prowl to find Bullseye. He makes his way disguised as just a random guy in a bar. He goes to
before that, the important thing of Ben Urich, as soon as Daredevil's gone, takes this file before going to the newsroom and cross-indexing that file under M, as in Murdoch. Bum,
dun,
bum,
dun,
bum,
dun.
It's a really effective twist, right? Like,
yeah.
Part of me hopes that Ben had a couple of appearances in Mackenzie's run before this, which is
I imagine
possible.
But, I mean, even like the appearances here, tell you pretty much everything you need to know.
Yeah, they're very good. It's just a bit quick that he knows already. Like, it's like,
yeah.
But yeah, then he disguises himself as a normal person and goes to Josie's, which is a bar that I believe I was aware of because it's
that's the bar they always go to in the show. Yep.
In the show, equally run down here. Seedy bar. It's like I need to learn about Bullseye, and so also in the bar because is recognized because of his lisp. It's Turk.
Saying Mississippi because we gotta phonetically write out the lisp, so it's there.
Yeah. Is this the first? So we get the first of what's going to be so many goddamn bar fights in Josie's over the course of these issues. Like, it happens so much that Miller lampshades the fact, specifically in like one of the later issues. In a hilarious gag.
Yeah. But yeah, so he interrogates Turk. There's a bar fight that breaks out. He goes to find Bullseye then. Oh no, sorry, long fight. Oh no, sorry, the fight is actually where the issue ends. Sorry.
Yeah,
there we go.
After
that's it. Yeah, that's it. Cool. Never mind.
building to the first time of many, many times, someone gets flung through the front window of Josie's.
Yep.
And my God, keeps happening. Yeah. But it's, I want you to find Bullseye, Turk, and when you do, tell him Daredevil is coming.
And that brings us into Daredevil number 161. Lovely cover. Oh, I love the cover so much. Him and Bullseye on the roller coaster. Oh, it's so good. With Black Widow on the tracks because got a damsel her, I guess.
Yeah.
Anyway,
so
getting into it. So
this
one, Dare the Devil.
We are at Coney Island, which is honestly, this is where Miller's allowed to go off his leash and have some of his best drawn action because it's I'm drawing a extended fight sequence in Coney Island. I'm gonna use all the tricks that I can to make this work.
And as every fan of Frank Miller should know, Frank Miller loves New York, so Frank Miller loves Coney Island. Yes. Turk immediately goes running back to Eric Slaughter and his fellow assassin thug friends.
He would say, "What's the Turk? He looks like he's seen a ghost or a devil." There are so many lines, especially in the Mackenzie issues, where it feels like there should be a sitcom-esque laugh track.
But there's not.
I am surprised with how funny some of this is. But
never. Well, it's very easy nowadays to think of Daredevil as a dead serious character, but Miller's the guy that did that, and Miller isn't writing yet. So
well, even with Miller, it never loses its wit.
True.
Even with the humor never undercuts the very human drama and the very dark, sort of just the darkness even of Mackenzie's writing, even though Mackenzie has more supervillain stuff.
Yeah. Of course. I mean, again, because Turk went straight back to his friends there right after presumably he was attacked at Josie's. Daredevil is following him, of course. Fight breaks out here. Again, it's an extended fight sequence, and Miller has a lot of fun with it.
Has so much fun.
It's a really great time.
Especially when we get on the Coney Island Cyclone, where we're fighting on a roller coaster.
Oh, yeah. And it's fucking awesome.
Black Widow's tied to the tracks.
But then it's not really her because it's a dummy of Black Widow, and it's fun. It's really, really fun. Meanwhile, the real Black Widow is being threatened by Bullseye, of course.
We get a quick
cut back. Yeah.
It's a nice interlude with Ben Urich. Because investigating the murder of one Batlin Jack Murdoch.
Yeah.
From years ago. And we see more of the aftermath of the questioning. Other people, it's like, it's like, oh, what was? It's like, the kid used to have a nickname. Now, what was it? Daredevil. How did you know that? Just a hunch, KO. Just a hunch.
I love the way Miller draws, noir detective parody Ben Urich here.
Yeah,
it's great.
All in shadows. I was kind of surprised that this is all building to issue 164.
I think that's the one that's expose, right?
Yeah.
I think that's the one. Yeah, because that's after the Hulk appearance. So you were surprised by that, or
I was kind of surprised that it wasn't written by Miller.
Oh, okay, gotcha. It's Mackenzie. I mean, Miller draws probably the most iconic version of the origin that happens there. It's not written by him. So, yeah.
Also, the way Black Widow escapes. So, Bullseye has this knife thrower. Throwing knives to try to kill her, but the knife thrower is literally called Cutter.
Mm-hmm.
Bit of an on the nose name,
a little bit.
But Black Widow is quite flexible.
So he is actually trying to get this guy to kill Black Widow here, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know. Why can't Bullseye just do it himself?
It's like, yeah, you have her tied up.
And Bullseye, come on, in your hands, anything is a deadly weapon.
Also, you have men with guns. Take a gun and shoot her. Like, this is a classic. You have just made an elaborate death trap that you do not need. Just shoot her. Like,
I forget. Have you seen the Austin Powers movies?
Haven't.
No, okay. Whenever there's a scene like that, that's all I can think of. You're gonna put him in there with only one inept guard. He'll escape. But yeah, it's exactly what happens here. She uses the knives to like step up and break out and use them to cut her ropes and all that. So she fights Bullseye, and then Daredevil joins the fight. There's a great action sequence between them, where Bullseye then begins throwing softballs. Baseball, softballs, they're not quite baseball.
Because it's Coney Island, and we're gonna have fun with this setting. God damn it, it's called effectively utilizing our setting.
And it's great. It's probably the best issue up to this point in the collection. It's really
it's one of the best issues of the collection overall. Like this 164. And the last three in particular, I think, are the big standouts.
Those last three, dude.
Those last three. I will tell you, the last one was so good, I barely took any notes. I was like,
really? Yeah.
It's one of those I
find that's one of those weird things. Is like, I always feel like when I really love something that I'm taking notes on, I feel like I should write about it more, but I just don't because I love it so much.
Yeah,
I do that a lot with the Star Trek videos. Where I'm just like, if it's an episode I love, I find that I just don't write much on it for some reason.
But if it's a thing that I don't like say The Dark Knight Strikes Again.
Yeah. I forget how many pages did you fill up for Dark Knight Strikes Again?
Too many.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
At least 9 or 10 for.
I feel like wanting to talk about The Dark Knight Strikes Again at all is too much to want to talk about.
But yeah, this issue ends with Bullseye getting a gun. And for whatever reason, he can't bring himself to shoot. So you have Daredevil and Black Widow. They escape and they have traumatized Bullseye, like muttering, "Don't hurt me, devil, devil," and his mind snaps. Put a pin in that. We're coming back to that later.
Yes, we are. Yeah. So
the next issue, a classic.
Jacob, are you ready? I'm sorry I didn't warn you about this before we read it, but I was kind of hoping you'd message me with some thoughts when you saw Hulk on one of the covers, and you just didn't. So Jacob, what was your reaction when you saw the cover to Daredevil 163?
I sighed.
Fair.
Dear listeners, if you have not listened to our episode on The Amazing Spider-Man by Stan Lee and Steve Ditko Volume 2, the Hulk is a character I have some issues with, largely because I've only seen him in one issue, written by Stan Lee and Steve Ditko, and it was not good.
Did this issue help at all?
Oh, it did. It did.
Good. I think it's actually a really good appearance for him.
So we're actually gonna. I think it actually plays around a little more with sort of the prototype Hulk banner as a system with dissociative identity disorder, without obviously using those terms. It's kind of there. It's very, very interesting.
It's also worth noting before getting into this that they skipped 162 in this because it was 162 was a reprint. So it's just
actually I checked up. It wasn't a reprint. It was a fill-in issue by a totally different team.
Was it? I thought it was a reprint.
I checked it. Apparently, it was not an actual reprint. It was we need something is delaying our next issue, so we brought in another team, a completely different writing and art team to write in an issue.
Hey, speaking of, totally unrelated, but everyone should check out Fresh Face One Shots, where we're talking about Batman Brave and the Bold currently. All right, let's get into Daredevil 163. Daredevil 163. Hulk time. Beware the Hulk. Getting into this. Matthew Murdock. What's up?
Fabulous cover.
Classic,
and
hand covering it. It's so good. I don't know.
We get an actual appearance at the $100 a plate fundraiser launching the re-election campaign of District Attorney Blake Tower of one Mr. J. Jonah Jameson.
Yeah.
Again, I shouldn't be surprised, but I kind of am.
Yeah. Like, I mean, why the hell not? Of course he's here. Makes sense.
It's because we read so much DC, and DC's isn't the real world. DC has its cities all spread out, whereas a not inconsiderable chunk of the Marvel universe is just New York.
Yeah, especially at the time, like almost all of it was just New York.
Yeah, well, because like what, the Spider-Man, the X-Men, the Avengers.
Yeah, it's fucking ridiculous. So
Daredevil, maybe Luke Cage, who I believe is a character at this point.
Yes, yeah, yep. Luke Cage was in here as well. So yeah, but Murdoch is Matthew Murdoch is at this this sort of what is it, like a charity ball, pretty much?
Yeah, it's a fundraiser for an election campaign.
Yeah.
Turns out Heather has met Rico, who's into disco. He knows all the moves, and
good for him.
Good for him.
Yeah. So Matt then goes to talk to Foggy. Also, I gotta ask, were you surprised that Foggy does not know Matt Murdock is Daredevil?
I actually wasn't, only because that reveal in the show feels so Frank Miller. Like,
okay,
it feels like it might be something Miller does. If not, oh well. Also, excuse me, Mr. Daredevil, the show. I now have a critique after reading enough of these issues.
Okay.
Elder Hansen, fantastic as Foggy.
Yes, he is.
Fabulous. However, costume department.
Oh yes, yeah. Yeah. I know exactly what you mean.
Excuse me. Make this man wear the most ridiculous bullshit, please.
Yeah. Let him do it.
Let him do it. It would be fabulous. Like, this man is
especially that wedding outfit.
The wedding outfit.
Could you imagine
the wedding outfit?
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
It's you know what? It's the problem is the fact that comic book movies and live action adaptations are it's like writers who use subtext. They're all cowards. They will not commit to the ridiculousness sometimes, and it's clearly that the best ones do, aka the Batman 2022.
Yeah. Yep. Let it be fun. That is not to say that Elden Henson as Foggy is not fun.
No, he is.
Just put him in the ridiculous outfits, though.
Yes. It's the one mark against his character. At least in terms of season 1. I haven't seen season 2 or 3. It's very possible that they dropped the ball writing.
They do not.
Yeah, like
trust me, it's all peak.
I don't want to take my foot and put it in my mouth. If
that's fair. That's fair.
But yeah. Also, Matt's like, I need a stiff drink and a little privacy. And Foggy goes to get that drink.
Matt disappears.
And finds
through the city.
Still in his tux. The Incredible Hulk.
The Incredible Hulk. Look at him. Look at that lad. Look at the way Miller draws him. I think it's actually really damn good.
Like,
he's not big enough for my liking. He's got to be fucking massive, but it's all right.
It's all right.
Okay.
I also find it fascinating that the Hulk basically is. I don't want to say he's eloquent, but he has dialogue. Yeah. He has understandable dialogue that doesn't feel like a negative stereotype, like certain Joss Whedon film adaptations can sometimes do. Like,
I mean, that, to be fair, Whedon was basing that on a precedent in the comics. So
yes, but yeah, he speaks in full sentences.
Yeah, and Matt tries to reason with him, and you can't because Hulk is mean and mad and
hates Bruce Banner.
Yep, and so Matt
wants to find Bruce Banner. And Matt actually talks the Incredible Hulk down.
He does.
Gets him to relax and become Bruce Banner again. So Matt takes Banner to his apartment, lets him sleep in his bed, and gets him coffee in the morning.
Because you see, Matt Murdock is also the Hulk's lawyer. And yeah, it's just funny because also, we once again do, other superhero here does not know that Matt is Daredevil, of course. But yeah, so he takes Bruce back to his home, gives him some money, sends him on his way. It's like, hey, don't go into any loud or annoying situations. And Bruce Banner immediately goes to a subway,
to the New York City subways. Yeah. Yeah, okay. Bruce, you're supposed to be a scientist. You should know that. If you're not,
he's a genius, Jacob, except when he's not.
Except when he's a total idiot.
Yeah. Like now, because of course, he gets on the train and it's loud and annoying
and crowded, and there's someone smoking.
Yeah, and so of course he's going to Hulk out again and literally break the train and break out of the station. And of course, Matt also happens to hear about this as well, happens to be nearby in a cab. So he gets out, changes it to Daredevil, and we get essentially another extended fight sequence between him and Hulk. And yeah, that's most of the rest of the issue. We get some, obviously Hulk is having a hard time fighting the Acrobat because the Acrobat is continuously avoiding him.
Yes. And as a crowd begins to form, in the crowd is one Ben Urich and one Heather Glenn. Heather, who just can't help but say Matt, and Ben hears her because it's like, oh, I am definitely right. And I really like the way this issue ends, aka with Matt Murdock as Daredevil being broken by the Hulk,
and Hulk being, agonized by the fact that he hurt Daredevil, and jumping away and leaping into the night. And we entered an epilogue where Ben Urich is writing his article exposing Matt Murdock as Daredevil, and that is where we end the issue, bringing us into Daredevil 164, which is, first off, the first truly iconic Frank Miller Daredevil drawing. The cover is it's just one of those Frank Miller Daredevil things that everybody thinks of when they think of the run. Once again, despite the fact that he didn't actually write the issue,
he doesn't write it. He's just on art.
Yeah.
I mean, nothing wrong with that. The artist,
no, nothing wrong at all.
Is fantastic. This is where we're at.
So yeah. Man, the respect of this hospital that is housing Matt to just be like, you know what, we have a superhero in our hospital. Let's just leave the mask on.
Yeah, we're going to leave the mask on, and we are also going to allow visits from. Prepare for this. This is a long list.
It's a long list.
The Vision, the Scarlet Witch, Black Widow, Captain America, Thor with some very luscious hair,
yes.
The Beast. Johnny
All
Storm,
4 members
Reed Richards, Susan Storm, The Thing, Luke Cage, and Iron Fist.
Yes. It's quite the lineup. And also, yes, another Fantastic Four appearance in this block of episodes. How does it keep happening? I swear I didn't plan it this way.
Are you sure? Okay,
I did not. I swear.
I have to ask. Did the Fantastic Four appear in Volume 2?
In Volume 2, I don't think so. But I know
Joey.
for a fact this is not their last appearance in the block.
Joey, do they appear in the next 4 episodes?
Yes, they do.
How many of them?
Not all of them. You'll find out. I'll leave that a surprise. But in true MCU fashion, the Fantastic Four will return.
Fantastic Four will return.
So
yeah. But the one constant by the bedside is Black Widow.
Of course. Yeah.
I really, really like sort of the way the progression of time is done over these 2 pages, as well as like following his Matt's recovery. And all the flowers before in bursts one Ben Urich.
Yes.
Who is, asked to leave. And Daredevil's like, no, it's fine. It's fine. Ben can stay. Let him stay. I know him. It's like, well, Daredevil, I have a personal story about you. It's the story of a lonely little boy blinded by a freak accident.
A lonely little blind boy. The story of Jacob Licklider.
Stab me in the heart, why don't you?
I can make the joke. I have blind siblings.
And it's the story of how he overcame his handicap, became a successful lawyer, and a man without fear. It's your story, Matthew Murdock, and I can prove it! So, he's like, well, if you are not Matt Murdock, and if you are not blind, just describe this photograph to me, and I will leave it. I'll forget the whole thing. And...
You know, I mean, damn, what a gotcha! You can't really beat that. Although I feel like Matt could have also made a really educated guess and been like, you know what, is that my fucking father? But then also he would have been fucked by calling him his father. So
is that Batlin Jack Murdoch? Or you know what? He doesn't make the guess. He's just had severe blunt force trauma to the head. He's not thinking at 100%. Also, it's a very nice moment of Ben refusing to let Matt actually touch the picture. Because I have a feeling, because, tactile super senses probably would be able to feel his hands like over the picture enough to be like, oh yes, this is Batlin Jack Murdoch.
Maybe? I don't know if it would work that way, although apparently it worked with the Black Widow picture earlier, so I don't know. Anyway, but still, it's origin time. It's origin time, and it's a damn good one. So getting into Matt begins describing his backstory, where he came from, how he came to be who he is.
His mom died when he was a kid. His dad wants him to have a better life than he does because his dad's a very supportive father. This gets him called a bookworm by a bunch of the other kids. They nickname him Daredevil because he's also a scaredy cat.
Which is a little weird. I don't think these kids understand what a daredevil is.
Here's my explanation.
Let them be
Here's
stupid.
my explanation. This was written in the very early 80s by two people who had not been kids for a decent amount of time.
That's true. That is.
But Matt still, had some physical prowess. He still, trained with some weightlifting and some acrobatics. Turns out that his father's boxing career started to hit the skids, and he took a job. He signed a contract with one Sweeney, who is a crook, is a fixer and a bum, but the money's good, so it's basically a Jack Murdock made a deal with the devil.
Yep.
And then one day, the army is transporting some radioactive gunk through New York City, and the driver has a heart attack.
As you always do. And this truck crashes, and the dangerous radiation on the truck falls off the truck, and Matt saves an old man's life who's directly in the way of the truck. Meanwhile, the radiation blasts Matt in the fucking face. He becomes blind.
Any gunk in his eye. He just gets blind by basically looking into the heart of the sun. Basically.
Yep. Yeah. As normal day. And so Matt is blind. Now, also, I think that if you're only familiar with the show might seem a little weird, is that his dad isn't dead yet.
I think that's an interesting... I think it's an interesting origin that, his dad gets to see his son grow up and get into college, meet Foggy Nelson.
Yeah. It's something you would have no clue on if you only knew, the TV version of the character. Right now I'm actually blanking on if the movie does that or not. I can't remember now, actually. Shit, I've only seen it once, and it's a good thing. I shouldn't be saying that like it's a bad thing. But anyway,
I have been told it is not a great film.
It is not a great film. It's pretty far from it. But hey, Michael Clark Duncan, I guess. Anyway, but yeah, so Jack Murdoch's career, it becomes like it's still going well. He's he's now like middle-aged, and he is still doing okay. He's offered by these shady
manager by his own manager. It's like you need to
his manager's shady. I was on the right track.
Yeah, you need to Jackie boy, either take a dive or you're a dead man. So basically it's the championship fight at the Madison Square Gardens. Matt and Foggy are in the audience, and Battling Jack Murdoch refuses to throw the fight.
Should. Yep.
And then
for his son, basically, who he knows is there. He wants to make him proud. That night, as Jack is walking away from the fight,
just gets shot in the back
and killed. Matt finds out about this. Decides to start fighting crime. The natural conclusion.
I mean,
puts together the brightest yellow suit you've ever seen.
Something with great dead parents comes great responsibility.
Exactly. Yeah.
That old
adage.
Puts together the fantastic. It's the brightest yellow suit, but my God, Miller, Janson, and Wayne do a really good job of making it work.
Oh yeah, I always liked it.
Janson,
I mean, I prefer the red myself, but it's still good.
Well, Janson's still using his Miller and Janson are still using a lot of the shadows and the inks, and then Wayne's choice of colors are really making the yellows pop.
Yeah.
And the red is a different shade of red than the regular suit.
Yeah. But yeah, so Matt takes on the men that murdered his father, and as he is chasing down the last guy, pretty much the one that actually did the job, the guy as he's running away, pretty much just has a heart attack. He wears himself out and he dies. Again, I love the way Miller draws that sequence so much with the flat line. Oh, it's so good. And yeah, he finishes his story.
And Mackenzie, for the first time in one of the rare times in this book, on the last page, knows exactly how much dialogue to use.
Yeah.
So that's how my career began. But Ben, it's all over. It's as good as over if you print this story. I know that. And I know what you mean to this town. But I'm a reporter, Matt, and I know what this story means to me. This is probably the hardest thing I've ever had to do, but we have a full line of Ben Urich lighting a cigarette, smoking a drag, setting the story on fire, throwing it in a trash can, walking away, saying, "This one's for you, Matt."
And then, Dr. Octopus tease at the end.
Dr. Octopus, if we could just take some black and mark out that Dr. Octopus tease, we'd have a perfect
ending. It's a perfect page.
I know you need a tease, but you don't. You don't.
And then also there's a page of Daredevil fighting a cheetah.
See, that's fine. That's the special bonus pinup. That's not part of the issue. That's an extra added for those who bought this issue on the stands.
But it'll never be reprinted to just have as one random page in your large 300+ page collection.
They needed to. I think. Wait, no, they didn't need to adjust because.
Nope.
Why is that?
Because there's already a filler page on the next one right after, so it doesn't work. Anyway, Daredevil 165. So I think I did warn you about this ahead of time that for some reason Doc Ock is here.
You did? Even then, this is, for me, I hate to say it, probably the weakest issue of the collection. It's not bad.
I think that goes more towards either the issue that immediately follows this or one of maybe the Spider-Man issues.
Maybe. It's... Doc Ock is here for some reason.
Doc Ock is here. Let's speedrun this one. This is The Arms of the Octopus.
Also, the first time Miller is a co-plotter.
Yes, Miller is a co-plotter. It's a weird issue for him to debut as a co-plotter.
Because it's the last Mackenzie... I believe it's the last.
Yeah, it's the last Mackenzie issue.
The last Mackenzie issue. Because 166. 166 is by. Wait, no, oh no, it's the last of 2 Mackenzie issues. There's one more Mackenzie issue.
Are you sure?
Yeah. 166 is also Miller and Mackenzie working together. 167.
Oh, the Gladiator. That's right. Okay. Yep. That checks out.
Yeah, 167 is the David Michelinie issue.
Is that how you pronounce that? I've wondered that.
I believe that's how you pronounce it.
Gotcha. Anyway, all right. Anyway, Doc Ock time. So Daredevil is once again in Josie's, taking on various not reputable people. Is this Josie's actually? No, maybe it's not.
No, it's Josie's.
Is it? Okay.
Well, the narration says, "Welcome to Josie's, a small sleazy bar."
Yes.
I feel so bad for Josie. Right? I get it, you're running a sleazy bar, but gentlemen, please be at least in your bar fight. Be civil. Don't throw people through the window. It keeps happening.
Do they even do it in this issue though?
They don't do it in this one. I think they show some restraint here.
Yeah, there we go. There's still a fight though, so it evens out. But yeah, Daredevil's chasing this guy down after he leaves. Josie's fuck, I yawned again. God damn it, fuck everything. Okay. Fuck. It's almost like I don't get enough sleep. I never do. Anyway, so he hunts this guy down.
Basically, the whole idea is that in Glen Industries, the Heather Glen's father's company might be doing some shady dealings for now that her father's dead. And so it turns out that there's now a client who's willing to work with them because they've got they're ripping off some stolen property. So they're running drugs. They're running some sort of substance to Glen Industries, and there's fraud.
And working behind the scenes here is a guy named Mr. Tubbs.
Mr. Tubbs. Did somebody see In the Heat of the Night? Is that why he's called Mr. Tubbs?
Maybe.
But also, we find out that near the end of her life, Josie's father.
Josie's father?
Was it
Heather's father?
Heather's father. I think we're both getting tired. Jesus.
It's oh man. It's not even a super long episode yet. We're still good.
We're still good. Was brainwashed by the Purple Man?
Yes.
Who
people may not know was a Daredevil villain first.
I thought was just a Jessica Jones villain.
Nope, he was very much recontextualized and is most known these days as a Jessica Jones antagonist.
Played by
he very very much got his start in Daredevil comics and is a Stan Lee creation.
That also tracks.
Yeah,
that tracks.
Although, could you imagine if Stan Lee wrote the character with pretty much the version we know today, which is basically the David Tennant version? Goddamn.
Lee could never.
Lee
doesn't.
Look, I don't want Lee to tackle such subject matter.
Lee does not have the tact to do that.
No, God no.
Lee barely has the tact to create the character of Daredevil. Let's be honest.
Yeah. Anyway, so as all this is happening, Daredevil swoops in. Fuck! Why do I keep yawning?
Stop thinking about yawning.
Daredevil swoops in. Fucking Heather gets pissed at him for being there, and then he leaves. And then, meanwhile, Foggy is getting married, and his family is coming for the wedding. Although he's getting a tuxedo for the wedding, which is the most gorgeous
purple and green
sort of checkered tuxedo, and it's horrifying. I love it. I want one.
Joey, I need you to do something for me.
What?
In our D&D game. When you get the opportunity, you know what you need to do.
Do you want me to wear something similar?
Yes.
Okay. Yes. Trust me, nobody in our game listens to this podcast. I guarantee you. But yeah. So yeah.
This is where we get proved. This is where you get proved wrong, and everybody listens to it.
Will's been listening to every episode. Yeah, that checks out. But yeah. So Foggy has this gorgeous, horrendous tuxedo. Meanwhile, Heather is
investigating the records, like Matt suggested, and
she's attacked and captured by Doc Ock. And then Matt is with Black Widow here, Natasha, who's just, what is she doing here?
Looking sexy.
I guess. I mean, that's successful.
That's kind of the.
She's also there to question who Matt loves, because he's on the phone with Heather, and she's like, "You love her, don't you?" And he's like, he doesn't answer her, and he walks away because he's sad and he has Catholic guilt and all that. So Daredevil then goes to chase down more of these guys that are working for Glen Industries.
And then Dr. Octopus shows up.
Yep.
And it turns out, surprise, they're not running drugs at all. They're running adamantium.
Yes.
And Daredevil's like, Dr. Octopus, I was expecting, and it just gets hit. You know, it is kind of clear that Daredevil, not really equipped to fight Dr. Otto, I have 4 octopus arms, Octavius.
Yep. But he does it anyway, or tries to at least, because he's attacked. Then Doc Ock takes him and dunks him in some water.
Because these are docs. And his heartbeat slows down, and so some cops find him and pull him out, and it's like,
why did Doc Ock let him go?
I
Other than
know.
Convenience, it's just the plot. But I mean, otherwise, I don't know.
Yeah, you could have just, once again, villains. If you have the hero on the ropes, just kill them.
Yep. Anyway, so Daredevil runs off into the night because, sad Catholic guilt.
And he's got to find back to Glen Industries in New Jersey,
where we have to get caught up on where Doc Ock has been since his last appearance in Spider-Man. So we have to recount what happened to him last time that readers of, every single Marvel title ever last saw him. And now he's here. And he has Heather, and now Daredevil is going to go save Heather. And
yes, and some great action. Fabulous action.
Go Frank Miller. Good job. But yeah, he fights Doc Ock. Eventually utilizes his billy club to wrap a cord around Otto's neck, I guess.
Yeah, and then electrocutes, shocks him.
Because then Doc Ock lashes out and uses his arms to attack Daredevil, but Daredevil leaps out of the way, and his arms go into this thing that says danger, high voltage. So it's got to mean it's going to electrocute him automatically. And so Daredevil then considers letting it just kill him.
Yeah.
And then he's like, nah. He turns off the electricity.
And then Heather's Matt, don't leave me. And of course, Black Widow shows up, and it's like, well, I'm leaving New York because of jealousy.
And then that makes newspaper headlines. Black Widow leaves New York. Nothing to keep me here, says Natasha Romanoff.
I don't know why that would make newspaper headlines.
Every superhero, when they're about to leave town to go protect another town, they have to set a press conference. Let the tabloids know,
Do you think? J. Jonah Jameson's got to get his Spider-Man as a menace from somewhere.
Yeah.
Do you think that when that happened, if that happened for Spider-Man, all of the Spider-Man rogues would just destroy the city?
Right? That's the thing though. In Marvel, with so many superheroes just populating New York, I feel like even that wouldn't be safe to do then.
Yeah. Because then you're dealing with the Fantastic Four And the Avengers.
The Fantastic Four are always around. If our first 5 episodes of our Marvel block are anything to go by, they'll stop you. Anyway, time for Daredevil number 166, featuring another character from Marvel's Netflix Daredevil series that I don't think you may not have caught on to.
I don't think so.
So this character here, the Gladiator, Melvin, is the guy from season 1 that gives Matt his costume.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yep.
That's interesting.
Yeah, they keep the whole thing about Betsy in the show. Do you remember that at all? Or?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's all there. So
I didn't make that connection.
Yeah, the Frank Miller influence goes really far.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Okay. 166.
We open with the most ridiculous ridiculous leap in logic that Matthew Murdock, on a lawyer's salary, has access to a special gym that comprises an entire wing of his Upper Eastern brownstone apartment.
Hey, let Frank Miller do his fun, translucent Matt Murdock's jumping around everywhere.
It is drawn fabulously, but I'm like, this is the early 80s at this point, because there's no way in a post-Ronald Reagan world that Matthew Murdock could afford all of this.
No, God, no. But yeah, so Heather comes in to see Matt as he's swinging around and everything.
And Matt's going to be late.
Because today is the day that Foggy Nelson is getting married. So yeah, Heather drags Matt out of there. He has to change. He has to go see Foggy. Meanwhile, we go over to a museum.
The Dibney Museum. I think that says Dibney. The Dibney Museum of Human History.
I think there was a second when I first reread this when I thought it said Disney for some reason.
Oh, Joey. When looking at the panel right now, I had to stop myself from saying Disney. That B looks kind of like an S.
It very much does. Who lettered this? Who lettered this? Can we fire them?
Joe Rosen.
Oh, damn. Okay, we can't fire him.
We can't fire him. He's a great letterer.
Yeah.
What might have happened is they might have said Disney, and then it's like, we need to go to press. But Joe, we can't say Disney.
Okay, but what would Disney have to do with any of this? Why would you call a place the Disney Museum of Human History?
It's where Walt's head is.
Oh, okay. That makes sense. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
For posterity's sake. Anyway, Betsy Beatty, is a teacher, with a bunch of school children, guiding them through this museum. And so okay, this museum, for some reason, has an exhibit on their exposition on man and his weaponry throughout the ages.
Yeah.
So,
in the Disney Museum of Human History.
Disney. Yeah, you said Disney.
No. I meant to.
Okay, good. Yeah. So I think the implication here is that they just have a bunch of supervillains outfits and technologies, just on display. For the public, which seems very dangerous. And it is, because the Gladiator shows up and takes his armor and his weapons.
Yep.
And Betsy was his therapist? No.
Pretty much, sort of. Yeah, like a caseworker, sort of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he wants her back. So much so he shoots a guard with a saw blade.
Doesn't kill him though, which is nice.
Doesn't kill him. Yeah.
But yeah, so he pretty much holds this whole place hostage, and meanwhile, Matt and Foggy looking his best in that horrifying tuxedo. They are greeted by Foggy's family, and also I'm just now noticing the Spock poster on Foggy's wall. I did not catch that before. Goddamn, that's cool.
When you said this, you weren't a Star Trek fan, dude.
Well, yeah, no. I'm saying like I didn't even notice it on my reread this time around.
I mean, you were very possibly distracted by Foggy's family.
That's or just Foggy himself in this case.
Yes.
Foggy's sister starts hitting on Matt, and it's weird. Is it Foggy's sister or is this? Yeah, it's got
it. It's his sister. Yeah. It's his sister.
Yeah.
And then
Okay. So then I forget, who is this guy? Is this Foggy's brother or I don't know. The guy in the yellow and green polka dot tuxedo. Like
I think it's his brother.
The Nelson family is No. This is like a frat guy that Foggy.
Yeah, it's a frat guy.
That's not even. He's not even.
And fraternity brother.
And look at it. These guys fap together. Top left panel on page 180. So they.
I don't have my camera on, but I am giving you such a look of disappointment right now.
Look, it literally says they fap. They fap together. Look at them. So anyway, So Foggy realizes that he
lost his wedding ring.
Lost his wedding ring, and so Matt and what's his face, the polka dot man, have they have to go out and find the fucking ring.
Pork Chop Peterson.
Meanwhile, Betsy tries to talk some sense into the gladiator, but Melvin kisses her, and she slaps him, and he yells out, "I am the gladiator, and you dare reject me? It is unthinkable unless... Yes, of course, I understand now. I must prove myself in combat. Then so be it, Miss Betsy. If you want a warrior, you shall have one." And that's that.
It eventually gets reported on the radio, as well as a story about someone... well, no, it's not a story. It's a baseball game played on the radio, including one of the players being called Fisk, which I don't think Miller had come up with the name Wilson Fisk yet.
What?
You know, Fisk.
Do you think that Miller came up with the character Wilson Fisk?
No, but he came up with the name.
Oh, okay. I see what you meant. Okay,
because wasn't the Kingpin just called the Kingpin until
I believe? Okay, yeah. Sorry.
I have a feeling that in writing this issue, Miller may have come up with have found a name that he liked for a character who's going to become very important later.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this baseball game is interrupted. It's like, surprise! The gladiator is holding several children hostage at a museum. And Matt's just like, well, gotta go. Like, just jumps out of the taxi window, and goes to the museum. So we can have some action where we also we see some more costumes, including Mysterio, the Scorpion, Stiltman, and some others that I don't recognize.
I'm not sure if those other ones are real. They might be. I don't know. Maybe.
They've included Mysterio, the Scorpion, and fucking Stiltman. I think this other one's probably also real, but is just, not recognizable because it's a B-list, probably Spider-Man villain, and that's being generous.
Yeah.
So the fight eventually goes to a full-scale replica of the Colosseum.
Yep. And of course, Melvin takes it seriously, and sees, the. I gotta be honest, I don't know enough about this shit to like describe what is actually happening here. But the statue with the standing above them, he like takes it as an actual sign to like kill Daredevil in that moment. Which is just funny. I don't know. I find the Gladiator a surprisingly amusing character. Despite the fact that clearly the character is commenting on some genuine mental problems.
Yeah, I just don't think Mackenzie and Miller do enough to actually explore that. Like,
I will say, he comes back in the second volume, and they do a bit more with him there.
Maybe it's Mackenzie then who's the problem.
Very probably.
Which, my God, it's so weird to say that.
Right? but yeah, so then through this fight, Matt eventually gets the upper hand. He beats the gladiator. Betsy comes in to pretty much like console Melvin in those last moments then. And then Matt returns. He goes to Foggy's wedding. He reports that he was unable to find the ring, but then Foggy realizes that the ring was on his pinky finger the entire time. And then the Reverend, actually, it's really funny. The Reverend then like asks her if she still wants
are you
to
sure you want to go through with this? For
and,
better or for worse, Reverend.
And it's a really sweet moment.
It's a nice bit of like, Groom is so dumb on his own wedding day, but like it works so well because it's like, yes, Foggy is happy to be married. So much so that he would forget where he put his wedding ring.
Yeah.
And then I was actually kind of disappointed.
Oh, as you should be. Are you talking about the advertisement for the next issue?
Yes!
Yeah, I don't know what's with that.
It's in our very special next issue, DD and the Punisher.
It's
in the most daring story of the decade. Doesn't happen.
Nope.
So the next issue, drawn by Miller.
Punisher does eventually come around to the Miller run.
I imagine in volume 2 or 3 then.
I forget exactly which one it is off the top of my head. I'm pretty sure it's 2 though. But yeah, no, he just doesn't show up at all. And I know you sent me your own personal theory that Mackenzie was kicked off the book for some reason,
or had to leave. Maybe
I mean, honestly, it wouldn't surprise me because Marvel had this thing in the 70s and I guess early 80s by extension where they would just constantly move writers around on their books. I really don't know why.
This is the era where Jim Shooter is the editor and he's kind of infamous for not always being the best.
Yeah, and it's like I mean I love the 70s Luke Cage comics, but like following the final days of that run before it became Power Man and Iron Fist, like I think there are like 4 or 5 different writers credited on the last volume of Luke Cage. Like it's really weird.
A lot. So this is David Michelinie, who have we covered anything from Michelinie before?
I don't think so.
I don't know. Maybe he did like an annual or something.
Maybe
that we covered.
I don't know.
I don't know. At some point. Because this issue is just kind of there.
Yeah, I don't love it. I like the opening. The opening's pretty cool.
The opening's cool. It's I would promise the Punisher. Okay? And like
I do not blame you for being disappointed.
I've never seen anything with the Punisher, but I think the Punisher as a character is an interesting idea. He's a character that I would like to read, that we will read someday, I am certain.
Most definitely. One of my favorite Marvel things ever is a Punisher comic. So, yeah.
But, so... And Michelinie is clearly trying, but this issue feels like a rush job.
Yeah.
So... we're at this party. Matt Murdock and
Heather
are at this party.
This like pool party and
of a man called Cord, and there's the mysterious villain called the Mauler shows up. And
not to be confused with the Marauder.
No.
Who appeared earlier this volume. But yeah.
And the big thing is this is a mystery of who is the Mauler, and surprise, it turns out to be an ex-employee of Cord. Cord's, who is basically, left, and Cord spins this tale that, he was just dissatisfied and left. Daredevil does some investigating, and the art's very good. It's Miller on art. It's Janson on inks. It looks great.
So good.
But it turns out, surprise, Cord's actually a capitalist bastard and fired this guy and cheated this old man out of his pension. That's the big twist. That's the issue.
Yeah, I'm comfortable with that. If you don't want
like,
to talk, I'm
the
I'm
action's
good moving
nice.
on. And I mean, like, honestly, like the plotline with the screwed over employee, like, isn't terrible. It
isn't
nice.
terrible.
Yeah.
It's nice. It has a very, I don't want to say fun ending, but a very satisfying ending of, this poor man dying and Matt Murdock leaving flowers at the grave. But yeah, I don't know.
Then there's like a little 5-page thing at the end, like sort of similar to the Spider-Man, like how Spider-Man's powers work. Here's how Daredevil's powers work, and
it's all written by Miller, all drawn by Miller, and it's nice art. But
yeah, it's not doing anything revolutionary.
It's this weird little issue of interim writer for some reason.
Yeah. Anyway, I'm ready to move on.
yeah.
Daredevil 168. So, Jacob.
Hi.
This is really where the Daredevil by Frank Miller run truly begins.
This is the beginning of the run of issues.
Which sounds weird to say 2 hours into this episode of the podcast. But Jacob.
Also a quick little moment. Rules Panda at Joey can read this.
Oh, God damn it! My son
just commented. Just happy to be here. Hi.
I love him. Oh, I love him. He never misses. What a legend.
Never misses. Always.
Oh, I love him.
Yes. Great. Wonderful.
So, Jacob.
Yeah.
Elektra.
Let's
talk about Elektra. What did you know about Elektra going into this issue?
That she is the female character created by Frank Miller, like
the one female character he created,
the one really famous one.
No. Trust me, the other statement's probably accurate.
That hasn't been massacred in characterization by Frank Miller, as far as I am aware.
I have not read his solo Elektra run, so I don't know that.
Oh well,
but I hear that's pretty good too, though. So
okay, well, when was it published?
Not long after he left Daredevil, I think.
Okay,
I think.
So he probably hadn't gone cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. Yeah. I also knew she was played by Jennifer Gardner.
Yeah, don't worry about that. Again, you really gotta keep going with the Marvel Netflix stuff because she's there eventually.
We're working towards it. It's happening. Yeah. It's getting closer because yes. More on that in the future.
But yeah, so is that about it?
That's about it.
All right. Well, let's get into this. 168, Daredevil 168. All right. It's a story just called Elektra. Let's get right into it. So, Daredevil is going after
cold in the rain, and you can immediately tell that Frank Miller has taken over writing duties.
It's so Miller, but in the best way, I think.
This isn't the insufferable narration of The Dark Knight Strikes Again. This is good noir narration.
Yeah.
It helps that it actually feels like the character is narrating.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely.
And poor Turk. Pretending to be blind with a guide dog in the rain, and Daredevil will not stand for that ableism.
God no. But it's one of those weird occasions where you feel bad for Turk, but also you understand the plight of Matthew Murdock in that moment.
Yeah. Here's the thing. Frank Miller manages to make me not feel sad when a dog gets kicked. Like that dog.
Yeah.
Difficult thing to do because, like, I'm not even the biggest dog person, but also I don't like cruelty to animals.
Fair. Hey Jacob, how's that Last of Us going? So anyway, trust me, that's relevant. I swear. But yeah, Daredevil fights Turk and kicks him up against the lamppost.
At some point,
what's up?
In between issues, Daredevil found out that a thief called Arlek Wallenquist was hired by Mr. Slaughter to protect him.
I feel like this had something to do with the canceled issue where Punisher was supposed to appear.
Maybe because Yeah, and like, okay, I was afraid maybe my memory was like not forgetting.
That just never happened.
It just never happened because I ended up having to take a day or two break, a couple of days break between the last issue and this issue, just because the time and life stuff happened. But yeah,
does Turk ever go to jail for any of the shit that he does?
No, he just gets beaten up a lot.
Maybe the reason that he's still out on the streets is because Matt never chooses to do anything about his shitty activity.
Yes. So,
or maybe he just keeps him on the street to keep punching him every couple
days. And here's the funny bit. So Mr. Slaughter, knowing Turk, has one of his men also trailing Turk so that he doesn't spill to Daredevil. Of course, he immediately spills to Daredevil.
And watching from above as the spilling is happening is a Frank Miller character, a woman in black and red, well, mostly red, but very well inked red robe like clothing. I never know how to describe Elektra's outfit. It's weird.
In an outfit that is perhaps a bit too scantily clad, ever so slightly, is Elektra, who. First thing, throws one of her thingies. I don't know what they're called.
Just call it a knife or something. I don't know, man. I know there's an actual name. I can't think of what it is.
It's a really good character introduction, though. Like
it is, yeah.
Because it's like
because she comes in, she attacks Daredevil. She stops Slaughter's guy from talking, and she's gonna like go after him herself. And in that moment, you realize that Matt knows this woman, calls her Elektra, passes out, and then it's flashback time.
Cue flashback strings. Even though like there's the immediate tone shift of bye anything silly, now that Miller's actually taken over, I still have some wacky sound effects going through my brain. I don't know why.
Okay, I think it's so these sword things are called Sai. SAI, it's spelled. I guess that's it.
Okay, well, the Sai.
The Sai. I don't know. I just wanted to know what they were called because I never bothered to look it up. Anyway, so flashback time. Matthew and Foggy at college, and they come across a young woman named Elektra, who is being protected by bodyguards. And Matt pretty much immediately falls in love with this woman.
Which again, Matt Murdock fucks.
As he should. But anyway, he doesn't have any time to talk to her because she's escorted away immediately by her bodyguards. So he like finds just a single moment alone with her.
After taking a paper, it's implied he makes a paper airplane to distract the bodyguards,
which totally works. He then gives Elektra a rose. And they decide, and she basically like blows him off because Elektra's an ableist, I guess. And then sees that he is physically able even as a blind man because he like leaps over her in front of her, and she's like, oh well, okay, well never mind my ableism then, and agrees to go on a date with him.
He's hot.
It's a weird moment.
It's a weird moment. But yeah, Elektra is the daughter of a Greek ambassador and a likely target of terrorists. Sure, Jan.
Why not?
Yeah. And so, Matt starts to explain how he actually really can see. It's like, I'd like to talk again. Please. It's like, come for me at 8, Four Eyes.
And then it's montage time because we say that they spend the entire time, I guess in this school
they
semester.
Have a year.
I don't know.
They have a full year this is undergraduate. This is pre-law school. Like Matt is still studying to get into law school. And it's like for a year they are euphoric. Until something begins to happen, mainly some stuff. So like there's the one night Foggy wearing these ridiculous moose antlers.
He's in a frat, my guy.
He is in a frat.
It's perfectly explained. But yeah, so as this is happening,
turns out there's some men holding hostages in the administration building. So Matt sneaks off and puts on his only means of disguise, which is kind of now known as like it's like the proto Daredevil costume.
Yeah. This is like what gets adapted into the show pretty much. It's he puts on this was it a scarf or whatever?
What actually he was going to give to Elektra.
That's right. Yes, and he puts that on, covers up his face,
fights these terrorists, and he throws one of them that gets thrown out of a window. Enough that that makes the people down thinking that they're killing the hostages. So the police on the ground start shooting into the building willy-nilly, and Elektra's father, riddled with bullets.
Yep.
By the police.
I was gonna say by the police. Matt then saves Elektra.
But Elektra does not cry. And Elektra's going back to Europe.
Yep. And
so it's a tearful goodbye.
Forced to say goodbye. It's actually really sweet. Look at Miller showing emotion. And
writing a competent female character.
Yeah, it's lovely. Lovely. Back in the present day, Matt gets up, being floored by a blast from the past. He decides to continue to find out what Elektra's doing, what she's up to. Meanwhile, Elektra has taken one of Slaughter's guys, forced him to report back into Mr. Slaughter to find out where he is, as Elektra is going to go after these guys herself. And Daredevil is following her. He's on her trail. After interrogating this other guy
called Mickey.
Yeah. He then follows Elektra to these docks where she fights Mr. Slaughter and his men. She takes out most of the guys, but then she is caught by Mr. Slaughter himself and one of his henchmen. And as Daredevil begins to make his way there, Elektra is being held hostage, and they basically do the same thing from the flashback with the hostage situation. He yells out to her. They work together. They take out this guy. Elektra realizes it's Matt. They kiss. And it's such a good moment. Daredevil takes the guy away, and Elektra cries in the night. And it's such a Frank Miller issue, but tells you kind of immediately what this run is going to be from this point on. And you can't complain at that point. It's so good.
It is very good.
It's not even the best issue in the collection, but it's still really damn good and tells you just what you're in for. It's awesome. So anyway, time for Daredevil number 169. Nice. Getting into it. Stanley presents Daredevil, the Man Without Fear, because of course he does.
Yes. Hey, Frank Miller, you like news reports, buddy?
Do you like news reports?
So Matt Murdock is going on this talk show when it's interrupted by a special news bulletin that Bullseye has escaped. If you see this man, call the police. He is not armed, but is extremely dangerous. In his hands, anything is a deadly weapon.
Yep. Don't forget it. But they
as soon as they go back to the program, once again, that's gone.
That one doesn't even make any sense. How does Matt escape?
How does he? Everybody should know you are Daredevil at this point.
Again, the Daredevil Batman connection. You literally can't explain that escape.
No, you cannot. But Daredevil meets with a detective, Nick something that begins with
Manolis. Nick Manolis.
That's it.
I know because I played that guy very briefly for one of our scenes on Blood Donut Studios. Yeah. Anyway, but yeah, so he
Bullseye.
As he walks down the street, he see we were just how mentally damaged Bullseye is at this point. He sees pretty much everyone around him as Daredevil, and it's a really fun idea to play around with because he just begins tearing through the crowd, trying to find the real Daredevil, and it's a really fun idea. I like it. He then goes into a tailor's shop, gets a whole new costume made for himself because, man, I guess nobody was after Bullseye in that time in between when he attacked that whole crowd, and now it's weird. Whatever, ignore it.
I think the implication is that this is a tailoring business that supervillains regularly attend. Like, it doesn't say that, but also
doesn't surprise me.
I want that to be true. I want it to be. It's probably funded by
we already have superhero. We already have superhero bar in this runs or supervillain bar, so it works. But yeah. Anyway, Daredevil.
Also, just realized who's the editor on this issue.
O'Neill, right?
Yeah, Denny O'Neill.
Yep. Yeah. Great. Yeah, love him. But yeah, Daredevil is explained the mental condition of Bullseye.
That it turns out he has a tumor,
cancerous tumor, which is it's
kind of a heavy thing for this issue to pull.
And it's both killing him and causing him to constantly hallucinate Daredevil wherever he goes.
And once again, I am surprised with the tact and grace with which Frank Miller handles this plot development.
Yeah.
Cats and dogs living together, mass hysteria. That's what's happening in my brain right now.
Yeah.
It's that's the only thing that I can imagine. And because Miller has Daredevil in response to Manola saying, "Oh, that'd be a real loss of society," with this sarcasm, Bullseye probably should just die. It's well, any death is a loss. Manola's.
It's good.
It's really good.
Yeah,
I think now that Miller's taken over some of the Catholic worldview on life as a concept is breaking its way to the surface a bit more.
Mm-hmm.
In the way it's written. I don't know if Miller is.
I think the closest we got in the issues leading up to the Miller run is probably just that bit where he says, "May God have mercy on his soul," with the guy that gets stuck in the tombstone. That's about it, I think. Just weird. Anyway, so movie time. We're here to see a movie.
We're seeing The Maltese Falcon, starring Humphrey Bogart, Mary Astor, and Peter Lorre.
This scene is so damn funny. I love this. As Bullseye is here in this movie theater, he once again seeing Daredevil wherever he goes, he begins fighting everybody in the theater as these two fucking film bros up front in the front row are talking about the film the whole time. It's really funny. I got a kick out of that.
And it's this running gag.
Yeah, it keeps going, even just beyond the theater scene itself.
Yeah, and this is in Times Square. We also have to cut over to Nelson and Murdoch, where surprise Christmas party. And Matt hasn't shown up. And Heather says, Foggy's it's just like he disappears, like he's leading some kind of secret life. Of course he's got a secret life, Foggy. I thought everybody knew about Matt's secret life. Well, what do you mean, Heather? Matt's secret life. He moonlights for Barnum and Bailey, tames lions, wrestles bears. And
funny.
She's not wrong, technically.
Yeah.
But then we go back to the movie theater, and I love these two panels. Where
Daredevil silhouette shows up there.
Silhouette shows up over the projection of the film, and the way the Miller draws the film, it's in this really interesting stylized thing. The background is also sort of stylized, not to be a full black, but this very dotted black thing.
Yeah. Daredevil shows up. Fight breaks out between the two of them. Between Bullseye and Daredevil, that is, of course. Bullseye actually gets the upper hand because he holds these the fucking film bros up front hostage, throws a knife, and actually it hits Daredevil. It hits him in the shoulder. He falls down, and Bullseye's actually able to get away.
Yeah,
because in his hands, anything is a deadly weapon.
I mean, knives usually are deadly weapons in anyone's hands.
I know, but I feel like it's especially true for Bullseye. I mean, come on, why else would they tell me that in his hands anything is a deadly weapon?
Yeah, so Elektra goes to Matt's apartment and sneaks in through the window and sees this token that Heather got for Matt, and she smashes it, and
then Heather shows up, and Elektra gets the fuck out of there.
Yeah,
and that's all we see of her for the issue. And actually, is that it for her for the rest of the collection? I think.
I think so.
Yeah, because it's all Kingpin coming up.
Yeah, I don't think she shows up in the next 3 issues. Yeah. So Bullseye has taken these film bros to his apartment. And he recognizes Humphrey Bogart and James Cagney from like the posters on the wall.
I love the idea that these film bros just have posters of these old film actors up in their apartment. Just funny. Yeah, so Daredevil is out looking for the film bros, working with Nick Manolis to find them. And as this is happening, first off, we get one of those great things that was translated into like Daredevil adaptations, pretty much because of like scenes like this, where Daredevil's on top of the rooftop and like listening to the city around him to try to hear where Bullseye took the film bros
based on a heavy smoking and medicated lozenges. So
it's good shit. I love that. Also, these film bros are ready to just straight up murder Bullseye.
I mean, let's be fair. Bullseye did attack a movie theater.
Yeah.
Yeah. But Daredevil bursts in. The fight breaks out of the apartment, goes down to the subway. You think for a moment, as there's an oncoming train, that they're both going to die. Again, amazing action. Matt's able to subdue Bullseye and
uses like the last of his strength then to get him off the tracks as a
train is coming. And we end with this somber idea of, I'm not God, I'm not the law, and I'm not a murderer. As
it's so good.
The operation was a success. The patient will live. The end. Like,
fuck. Oh man. Jeez, that's so good. Oh man. All right, we got 3 to go. All right. Daredevil 170. The Kingpin must die. Okay. Look, I know the king must die isn't like an uncommon phrase, but part of me just thinks, just at the back of my mind, that with all the damn British invasion singer references that were happening in comics at the time, that this is a reference to Elton John's The King Must Die. I think it's possible. I don't know. It's just a stupid theory.
That track.
What's up?
When did Elton John release that track?
That was from his second album, the same album as Your Song. Is late 60s. Or maybe early 70s.
Early 70s. I was going to say... My brain always forgets how long Elton John has been around.
Yeah, his first album came out in the late 60s.
Probably a reference.
Yeah. 1970 the album came out in. So, yeah.
Yes.
So very possible. Anyway. All right. Getting into this, love the opening page. It's so good.
I don't know. I love this idea. It's this tiny little character moment of Matt Murdock as Daredevil being friends with this guy that runs every night. Like,
yeah.
This guy's
the jogger like challenges him. He's like, "Oh, no, I can catch up with you. I'll be fine. You don't need to like slow down for me." And Daredevil's like, "Okay." So he like fucking like runs up the side of this bridge and like leaps off of it, and the runner's like, "All right, well, never fucking mind." Then once again, it's time for Daredevil's daily harassment of Turk Barrett.
Josie's.
And the window gets smashed again because Turk goes diving through it.
Except this time, Turk like, so Daredevil sneaks up behind him. It's like if he shows up again, I'll give him hey Turk, let's talk. No, stay away from me, Devil, stay away. And Turk catapults himself through the window.
Yep. does the job. He does the job for Matt, and it works. But yeah, Daredevil is once again here to interrogate Turk, where he learns that the Kingpin is making moves, even though apparently he is no longer in New York City. He is in Japan.
So the idea is that the big boys are lining up every freelance gun to kill one guy. The guy who used to run this town, the Kingpin. So the Kingpin is the victim in these 3 issues, which I think is fascinating.
Yeah. Now, also, did you know going in that this was like the first ever time that Kingpin was a Daredevil villain?
I did not.
Yeah, so this is the first time that he ever appeared in this title. First time that he was ever associated with the character of Daredevil, which is so weird because nowadays, once again, it's another one of those characters that is so closely associated with Matt Murdock. And yeah, you just wouldn't think that at the time.
I will say it is Vincent D'Onofrio's performance that my brain jumps to when reading the character,
as it fucking should be.
So
you have your instructions. Attack. He's just he's so good. I love him.
The Kingpin's in Japan, taking on some martial artists,
still keeping himself in shape.
Were
you aware of just how comically large the comic book version of Kingpin was?
Oh, I'm aware. I've seen Spider-Verse.
That's true. That is true.
Where he is equally as comically large.
I fucking love that one shot where he takes up the entire screen. It's just black and it's just his head in the middle. So good. Anyway, but so he's keeping himself in shape. With some of these guys.
I heard he got a lot of practice back when he was the Kingpin, and that sets him off.
Because he shouldn't be called the Kingpin out here. Here he is, Wilson Fisk. He is a normal man. He's here with his wife Vanessa, who I'm sure you also know, obviously, from the Netflix show.
Was a little surprised that, not entirely surprised, but she knows he's the Kingpin.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
And she's totally for it. She's like, yeah, I like her big thing's like, hey, I want to hire Nelson and Murdock to protect you because I think people are going to try to kill you, honey.
That's that thing I always love about Vanessa's character is she is so aware of his criminal dealings that she's just like, fuck yeah, man. She's just like, it's awesome.
It's like, yeah, I'm turned on by it.
Yeah, she's into it.
So, halfway across the world once again, back to New York, to the offices of Nelson and Murdock at 7:30 a.m., where Foggy has fallen asleep at his desk, and it turns, Foggy says nothing's wrong, but Matt knows he's lying, but we can't follow up on that at all because
2 men with guns are here in our office, and they are followed by Vanessa, who wishes to hire Nelson and Murdock, when the law offices themselves get shot up by other people with guns, and Matt leaps off to the side and disappears and turns into Daredevil as these other guys are.
I did find out, oddly enough, when trying to acquire my copies of these books, that these 3 issues were one of the first graphic novels collected.
That makes sense. That makes sense. Yeah.
In the mid 80s.
It's a great story to have on its own. It's pretty great. Yeah. Man, Daredevil leaps into action, fights this guy that's after them, and throws him off a building, as you do. He gets caught by the police. I don't know. Is he dead or no? Oh yeah, no, he's dead. Yeah. Yep. Never mind. Yeah. He's dead.
Well, he was because he's also on fire.
Yeah. But yeah, so the police then arrive, including Nick Manolis, who is they're taking statements. Obviously,
it also turns out Bullseye is being released from prison today. Yeah. So
which is bizarre.
Yeah, and it turns out that in the scuffle, Vanessa's been kidnapped. Which is a lot. So Matt wants to stop the madness. So he goes as Daredevil to find Bullseye
who's working with these these New York mob bosses that have like gathered together, who are very clearly, who are the ones behind attacking the Kingpin. And Bullseye's now working with them. Daredevil arrives to rain on their parade, and we get our third Daredevil Bullseye fight this volume alone.
Yeah, it's a fantastic one though.
Like, yeah, Miller crushes all of them.
It's great, and like where it leaves Matt in the end is a fantastic ending. Like Miller has Matt swing on an American flag, which breaks and gets torn up completely as Matt lands in the bed of a garbage truck.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where Matt's story ends in the issue.
Yeah, and we see pretty much just like chaos erupt then across the remaining pages in the issue as we find out, obviously, Vanessa was taken by these other mobsters here in New York. Word gets back to the Kingpin about it as he goes back to New York to
first in a dummy plane that gets blown up. So yeah, it's a fantastic.
Kingpin is being like targeted. And yeah, that's where the issue ends. Like, yeah, he decides to pretty much wage war on these guys because they're going after him personally. And yeah, that brings us to Daredevil number 171. At last, monthly, because it was bi-monthly up to this point. So yeah, here we are.
This is where my notes kind of stop.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because I'm like, I kind of was just like too engaged. Because this is just fantastic. Like,
yeah, it's pretty great. Yeah, like picking up where we left off.
Some of the best stuff Frank Miller's ever written.
Yeah, it's great, and you haven't even gotten to what the run is like truly known for yet. Like, oh man, volume 1 is just like getting you used to it, but like volume 2, like, oh fuck, get ready, man.
These are the hors d'oeuvres.
Yeah. It's about to get crazy. So, in the meantime, we have 171 in the Kingpin's clutches, picking up where we left off. Daredevil still in the back of this garbage truck.
Quick recap that takes a couple of pages.
Mm-hmm.
And the war starts. Like, this becomes an all-out war.
Mm-hmm. The last issue in particular is called Gang War, which is actually the basis for well, not the basis, but like is the inspiration behind a Marvel Comics event that's going on right now called Gang War. It's about all like the street level heroes right now, and of course Kingpin's involved because he's Kingpin. But yeah, so I don't know, just a fun little thing. I'm not reading it because I'm not caught up on any of those runs that it involves at the moment, but there it is. Anyway,
it's a thing that's happening as we speak.
It is a thing that is happening right now.
Yeah, so this guy Quinn is at a phone booth, basically saying like, "Hey, the Kingpin's in town, and who should, shoot this guy down?"
But the Kingpin himself, or at least where the Kingpin's been, at least. Meanwhile, Matt and Heather are in love. What else is new? And also, more confirmation that the mobsters have Vanessa. They have stolen her. They are holding her hostage.
I really like Vanessa's dialogue here because she's kind of a confident one. It's like, "I beg you, release me. Turn me to my husband before it's too late." And they cut her off,
mm-hmm.
And it's like,
and it's just like it is already too late for these guys. Like, they have already messed with the wrong guy. It's awesome. Miller does a great job of just like building up the Kingpin as a threat. Like, he's this is the first issue where you actually see him like do something threatening. But even before then, like,
seeded that with his anger switch flipping on hearing him being called the Kingpin in Japan.
And so perfectly establishing his relationship with his wife. Like, it's so good.
Yes. And Vanessa was created for this run, if I'm not mistaken.
I believe so, yeah.
Because he was just called the Kingpin. He didn't even have the name Wilson Fisk until this point.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So Matt goes in disguise at Josie's.
Yep.
and I'm looking for a man who's looking for a lady named Vanessa. And you can just imagine that, like, that clink as everything goes silent and the whole bar is looking at him. And once again, I just want to see the Kingpin. So, bar fight breaks out.
Bar fight.
And once again, that poor window gets broken. So,
which actually gets commented on this time, which is lovely.
At this time,
it's just fun. I love that. Yeah. So anyway, Turk
is going to take this man to the Kingpin.
Yep. Which is Matt disguised, of course. Matt then is brought before the Kingpin. I love the way Miller draws the radar sense here, seeing like as he approaches the Kingpin, just the sheer size of this man. It's awesome. It's great. And so Matt is brought before this guy, before the Kingpin. He is tested, as shall we say, as who's this guy crawling out of this? I forget this bit. Hang on. I read this like almost a week ago. Who is this actually crawling out of this cell here to the side?
This is Duke.
Who dies then?
Who was attacked by Bullseye outside of Sweeney's.
Yes.
If you want your wife, you got to meet his bosses alone and unarmed at the construction site on 9th Avenue and 40th tomorrow night midnight as he croaks. So, Kingpin is ready to murder.
Mm-hmm. Naturally.
And then
so Matt is essentially left here as the Kingpin goes out. I love this bit then when like Matt is left like inside this cell and he has to like find a way to break out. It's such a good moment, like breaking like the handle pipe thing off of this door that literally breaks as he's like pulling on it. It's so good. Just an awesome moment. Before Kingpin like himself like comes here and
in between this, Foggy's having his own time of despair.
Yeah.
That I don't think we get resolution to yet.
No, that's that. I think it's actually that's waiting till the next volume. I haven't actually gotten super far into my volume 2 reread. I have not had time to recently.
Yes.
But it's more volume 2 thing that we're getting coming up on.
Yeah, but so we get to the point where then the Daredevil fights the Kingpin.
Yes.
And the Kingpin is just a monster.
Yeah. It's one of those things that I love that, like, Kingpin is one of those comic book villains that is, pretty much just a guy in a suit. But no, this guy is physically able. Like, he can actually fight, and he stands up against, Matt Murdock, who is physically able himself, that we've seen time and again. It's just great. It's great to see that there's actually like a physical matchup there.
Yeah. So we eventually move to the construction site where it's like a train wreck in slow motion that you can't like look away from.
Yeah, it's awesome. Kingpin arrives. He sees Vanessa tied up there. He almost wishes to reason for a moment. He sees Vanessa there. He's elated to see her as the rest of these guys here are attacked by this what is this, like the sonic device
sonic
here?
Blast that Wilson Fisk brought. However, this sonic blast sadly leaves one man alive, far enough to remaining conscious. He fights back the pain, crawls to his mortar device, and presses a fateful switch. His aim is not careful. And the entire building comes down. Vanessa is dead.
Presumably.
I was like, so she's not actually dead. No way Frank Miller would introduce this character for 2 goddamn issues.
Yeah. Oh, unless here's the thing. If she were actually dead here, that would be straight up fridging her. Thankfully, she's not, as is revealed next issue, thankfully.
Thankfully.
But yeah, God, Kingpin's reaction here, like, the way Miller draws that is so damn good.
And meanwhile, Daredevil is being flushed into the city water drainage system, all tied up.
And that's where we end the issue, bringing us into our final issue for tonight. I did not realize how long this episode was going to be. We are coming up on like 2.5 hours here.
Yeah.
I think we have to make some cuts. So I think it's like 2.5 hours right now.
Yeah.
Damn.
This is the problem. Wow. It's 16 issues and they're very complex and mostly all very, very good.
Yeah.
This one I have literally like 2 notes for. One is, this is fucking amazing. What the fuck happened to Frank Miller?
Are those your 2 notes? That's it?
Yes.
Goddamn, I love that. Gang War. Yeah, here we go. Daredevil in the water system here makes his way out. Is met by these like, I guess, bums here that are outside the sewage system. Daredevil once again makes his way to Turk.
You would think Turk wouldn't go to fucking Josie's. Stop going to Josie's, Turk.
It makes this such a great bit, though, consistently coming back to this. So Daredevil gets Turk, stops him from breaking the window finally, and Josie's like, thank you so much. It's like the third one. Do you know
how much them things cost?
Oh my god, it's so good. And also the implication that like all 16 of these issues take place across a week. I love that.
Well, here's the thing. The window's been smashed more than 3 times.
I thought it was 3 times in this volume.
I think it's 4 times in this volume.
Is it?
I think so.
I only counted 3.
See, there's the last one. You might be right. I don't know. If this all takes place over the week, my god, it's a busy week.
Yeah, right?
I don't think it physically can take place over a week,
right?
Based on the amount of passage of time
of
day to night to day to night to day to night.
Yeah, unless we just assume that a week has gone by within this 3-part story where Daredevil has gotten Turk like 2 other times outside of the one earlier this story.
Which is possible. That is possible.
That is very possible. I just imagine it's like a fucking like paintball game. Like, like Daredevil gives like Turk like 10 seconds to run, and then he goes after him. Usually Turk just runs straight for the window. It's great. I love it. Anyway, so
we get a nice 1-page recap of what happened. We find out that Daredevil's goal is to get the files. Turk is going to be working for him.
Mm-hmm.
And the gang war is the rest of this issue. Like, this issue is an all-out war.
Yeah.
Kingpin is going to shatter the chain of information. He is immediately set himself up in a sub-basement. There is this almost news editorial-esque narration throughout basically the rest of the issue. That is utterly fantastic.
Yeah.
This is an issue. Find this volume should be pretty easy to find.
Yeah.
I don't know
if nothing else, get it digitally. Like,
yes, it's very much digitally. All 3 of these volumes you can find pretty fairly priced. At least I was able to find physically. But seek out this issue; it is fantastic.
Yeah, it's so good. It's essentially just you're watching this situation escalate. You know, you're watching the gang war get bloodier and bloodier. As the mob bosses of New York and the Kingpin go up against each other. It's so
what's
good.
interesting is partially because of the Comics Code Authority at the time, because this is
1980. Or maybe it's 81.
I think it might be 81.
July 81.
Yeah, I think we're in 81. Comics Code Authority still has a lot of sway.
Yeah.
But a mix of just Miller's fantastic art, Janson's inks, and especially the colors. The colorist on this issue is once again Glynis Wayne, and she is fantastic at helping imply the violence imply the blood with a lot of plain red background.
That, and also Janson's inks do a great job of like silhouetting, or at least like just covering up a lot of the actual violence happening here. But it actually makes it more effective in a weird way.
Yeah, well, it's almost the horror movie principle of the scary thing isn't the monster that you see, it's the monster that you don't see.
Yeah, exactly.
How your brain fills in the blanks.
Yeah. Yeah, it's great. I fucking love it. But anyway, so it all leads up to pretty much this confrontation where Kingpin is actually face to face with these mob bosses and Bullseye, and Kingpin realizes how hard he's been played this whole time. So much so that he deduces that even his like one remaining ally here does this guy actually have a name?
Lynch, that's
it. That Lynch was the guy that blew up the construction site and killed Vanessa, and Kingpin takes this as an opportunity to kill the guy himself. And my God, it's such an effective scene. And yeah, this leads to also luck. I don't want to spend this, these whole 2 episodes just talking about little hints of where Frank Miller would go eventually. But Daredevil specifically gets information about what's going on from a prostitute on the street that he seems to be well acquainted with. It's a weird moment. It's like my one criticism of this issue, but it's still weird. Anyway, so
this is one of the few times where Miller actually treats the prostitute with respect.
That's true. That's true.
It surprisingly doesn't hint at like terrible things. Yes, she's like the most disrespectful is he gives her a lousy boyfriend. That's also kind of just a trope when it comes to using prostitutes in media. Not a good trope. It's very problematic. But it's also not an exclusively Miller thing. Like Daredevil treats this prostitute with kindness.
Yeah.
Like it. Once again, what parallel dimension are we in where Frank Miller is writing something good with nuance?
Yeah. It's fucking awesome. Oh God. Anyway, leading up to this great confrontation then where
Daredevil fights in a blackout, which is fantastic. Confronts Bullseye again.
but no complaints.
Somehow, here's the thing. Miller's such a good artist that despite the fact that this confrontation keeps happening, I haven't been bored by it once.
Yeah.
It's always so interesting. Yeah. Always fun to watch. It's just fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they end trying to choke each other out.
And then essentially just like giving up. And it's actually a really powerful moment. But also, there's the fact that Kingpin has guns trained on them.
And the Kingpin is taking his place back as the Kingpin of crime. And Matt ends the issue having lost.
Yeah, I mean, he gets Bullseye in the end. He's allowed to take him with him, but that's about it. And then we get an epilogue. Yeah. Which shows that Vanessa is still alive, that she is crawling through the wreckage, that she's still out there, and that she seems to be suffering from some form of memory loss.
Yes, amnesia. Yeah, and that's where we end.
And that's it. That is that. Oh man, that is nearly a 3-hour episode.
I mean, Jesus. This is what happens when there are 16. So yeah, this is a 16-issue, very intricate epic. I'd say it's fantastic. If you haven't read it, go and read it. Like, it is.
I feel I'm looking at that panel again where Daredevil leaves with Bullseye, slung over his shoulder. He's like, "You win, Kingpin, this time." I'm just imagining you, just like, "You win, Frank Miller."
You win, Frank Miller. Somehow this is like the most and least Frank Miller thing that we've read, right?
Yeah. Well, it's weird. It's like, what tropes do you assign to Frank Miller when he's had such a weird and surprisingly varied career? yeah, it's just he goes through phases, and this just so happens to be one of the good ones.
One of the very, very good ones. I'm very excited to continue this next time.
Yeah, we're doing this next time. We have
next time shouldn't be as long because it's
we got 12 issues to go next time.
Shorter book.
So yeah, I mean it's still 12 issues, but it's not bad. It's not bad. And yeah, I guess we'll be doing that next time. I'm glad you enjoyed this. Honestly, I'm just really happy you like this. I hope the only way is up with Miller's Daredevil from this point at least. So yeah. All right. Let's begin to close it out. We didn't do any adapted material for this because the only thing other than I guess we could watch the show, but we're doing that for the bonus episodes. And there's a movie which isn't especially relevant to this first volume. I'm blanking right now on if it's relevant to either volume 2 or 3. It'll be one of them. There's a specific event I'm looking for. I want to say it's in volume 2. So we might have adapted material next time. Maybe. I guess we'll see.
I'm sure you get that to me sooner rather than later because
luckily, but in the meantime, though, I will leave links as always to the books that we covered on this episode and next time that we'll be covering in the description below through Amazon links. Be sure to check those out. Of course, also be sure to check out our link trees that I'll have in the description below. I can speak. Where we'll have our socials and everything like that. You can check us out there. Otherwise, plugs. Jacob, I know you have your blog.
I have my blog. On my blog, I am nearly done with my great Brandon Sanderson reread. I am at some point around the time, probably within the week that this episode comes out, I will be posting a review of a third Star Wars book.
Yes, that's true. I have you reading a third Star Wars book. Yay.
And then I'm continuing my Wheel of Time analysis with The Shadow Rising. I've got the first 2 essays, at least for sure, up right now. Don't know how I'm going to get to the third this weekend at the time of recording, just due to having caught this slight cold. Can't quite hear it, but it is kind of taking a toll on me a little bit.
True.
And of course, these Star Trek reviews.
If it helps at all, Jacob, it is unnoticeable through your voice. So
yes. Star Trek reviews. We both just reviewed Spock's Brain?
We did.
I haven't watched it at the time of recording.
You have not? Are you watching it tonight?
Yeah.
I wish you luck. But we reviewed Spock's Brain. And also, for those that want to join the Star Trek Patreon that me and my brother have up now, you can also check out next week's review early of the Enterprise incident is coming up, so you can check that out. That'll be there, and it should be a good time. So if you want to check that out, that's there. Other things on the channel, we're finally catching up once again on Breaking Brian. We finally got the Better Call Saul season 4 video out. We're hoping to stay on schedule for the rest of the release of the series, so we're going to try to get season 5 out before the end of the month. If not, it'll be very early December, and we're going to try to have the whole series done by the end of the year. So
we'll see. You, Brian, for getting sick.
It's all right. It's all good. It's going around. And I think that's about it. Oh, also R2BD. Me and my brother also recently started up a Star Wars show because we like Star Wars. So check out R2BD.
Yeah, check it out. I listened to a third of the first episode or so, and it's good.
Good. Did you like what you heard?
I did.
Good.
I stopped basically as you were finishing your movie discussion because
cool. Check that out. That means a lot to us because we're big Star Wars fans, and I think that about does it.
Yes.
Cool. Thanks guys for watching. Thanks for sticking with us for nearly 3 hours. Means a lot. So
what is it with Frank Miller episodes going super long?
Fucking Frank Miller, man. He can't. He is unstoppable for some reason. So I think that about does it. Thank you all so much for watching. Until next time, this has been Joey Morgan
and Jacob Licklider.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.